All right, can I call a Policies and Priorities Committee meeting to order for Monday, December 9th? Before we do approve the agenda, I'd like to put a motion on the floor that we add BC Natural Resources Forum Conference for discussion and AME Roundup Conference. If I can get a seconder. Councillor Noxana, discussion? Okay, call the question. All in favor? Carried. So those will go under 7 for the BC Natural Resources and number 9 for AME, and then, 7 for the BC Natural Resource Conference, number 8 for the AME, and then 9 for adjournment. Take approval of the amended agenda, please. Councillor Noberry.
That all items in the December 9th, 2024 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting agenda be approved as amended.
Seconder, Councillor Julik. All in favor? Carried. Minutes for November 12th, 2024 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting minutes. Recommendation, please. Councillor Noxana.
That the November 12th, 2024 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting minutes be adopted as presented.
Seconder, Councillor Clickash. Any errors or omissions from council? Staff?
No.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Any business arising for the minutes, council? Staff?
No.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to delegations. YMCA BC Lynette Mikalishen, Director of Child Care Services, and Becky Flemming, Manager of the Child Care Operations, Tumbler Ridge, invited by council to update council on the current operations and the future plans for the YMCA Tumbler Ridge. Becky, if you just want to come up to the delegation table. And Lynette is joining by Zoom.
Well, thank you, Council, for having me here tonight. I just wanted to kind of introduce myself if you don't know me. My name is Becky Flemming. I am the manager for Child Care Operations in Tumbler Ridge. Just kind of wanted to give you guys a little brief. Is December 1st marked 2 years with the YMCA in town. So we started off back in November 2022. We had roughly 8 children in our child care center. We obviously had a very lengthy wait list. The YMCA agreed to take us over from the Tumbler Ridge Children's Center Society. And from there, we were just able to grow. We weren't even sure if we were going to be able to keep operating due to staffing, due to location, just like everything. It was kind of all up in the air of where we were going to go. So we, with the help from Lynette and the whole YMCA, we were able to grow our numbers in our 3 to 5 program, our group care. We now have 25 children in that program. We do have a wait list. We have our licensed preschool as well, so we can operate 3 programs for our preschool program. Our staffing has grown incredibly. We have 4 ECEs, 3 EC assistants, which is amazing. And again, so we are now not just YMCA of Northern BC, we are YMCA of British Columbia, and that's been something huge that we've been working towards as well. We also have our school age care on school grounds, so that's something that the YMCA has been able to bring into our community. It's completely revamped. We did have it previously, it was very small in our building, so we've been able to work with the school district on that, and that's been amazing for us. As well as our families. Our biggest thing, I think, for our whole early years building is our $10 a day for our families. So we are able to offer that for our preschool families as well as our daycare families, our 3 to 5, and they've been extremely receptive of that, obviously, because it helps lower their fees. The other things that the YMCA has been able to bring into the community, we have home-like environments. If you want to just scroll to it, the next couple, we have some pictures. Yes, we have different home-like environments. We've been able to add all new outdoor equipment. If you guys have seen previous pictures of our YMCA with the old play structure that we had. So this past summer, I was able, with a couple parent volunteers, to completely take that down, and we were able to get the funding for all new outside equipment, as well as we got an entire new paint job just like that, and like really worked on the home-like environment for the program. As well, we were able to add in a nap wall, which before, if like you knew the program, we just had a pull across curtain. It was hard for the children to nap and to keep children quiet when it's just a curtain in between. So like we've been able to actually build a full-on wall there, which has been amazing. We were able to complete our bike path in the outside. So before, like the kind of like the overhang outside, like it was a path, it got torn up to put the overhang in. So we completed that again. So now the children are able to completely ride around in a circle as opposed to like back and forth in a line. So that's a big improvement for us. And as you can see now, we have our school age program that is offered. Like we have our before and after school care program, as well as winter camps, summer camps, day camps, spring break camps, and that's all offered. And so you can see that, because I know a lot of families, they might not know about that program. It is one of our quieter programs that we have, but like we do have that, and that's what the inside of our on-school grounds looks like. And so I will now pass it over to Lynette, and she will discuss a little bit about what's next and yeah, what our next steps are for the Y. Maybe. Can you hear us, Lynette?
I'm not sure if you can hear me,
Yes.
but the district's
We can now.
the district is muted, so none of us online have heard anything.
Okay, we can hear you now. Sorry that you missed the first part of the presentation from Becky. She did a great job.
I knew she would. I have other colleagues that are like on here waiting to like hear as well. So I kind of remember where I was like, I can't hear. So I think it's like, what's next for the YMCA? So as most of you probably know, we are working with School District 59 on the building of the new spaces at Tumbler Ridge Elementary. Those will include 12 infant and toddler spaces, much needed and long awaited for the community, and then preschool school age, and group 3 to 5 on school grounds. I think I've been asked what's the future for our relationship with the district regarding the community spaces. And really, I think that remains yet to be seen. First and foremost, I think that there's lots going on in Tumbler Ridge right now with new mines coming or reopening and all those sorts of things. So I think there's an opportunity that as we move into those new spaces to see what the need might be for industry and how we can work to support industry in their direct needs for childcare, because we know that the hours of regular childcare don't necessarily work for those that are shifts or those that are on those long days. I'm sure Becky's talked about our biggest challenge right now is being able to bring people to community and housing and what that looks like. I can honestly share with you that we've had a really great experience with the community of in Hudson Hope, and so with BC Hydro as the partner who has worked to help us secure housing for staff, and we have been able to recruit 4 or 5 staff to that community, and things are going super well. So really looking for innovative ways that we work together to ensure that, despite the challenges, that that we can bring the staff that we need to continue to build the foundation of community, really by providing the opportunity for people's children to be cared for in a quality situation. So that's really what's next. Tumbler Ridge We appreciate the task force. I think that as we ramp up towards the opening of the new spaces in 2026, that we really will need to ramp up on the recruitment of educators. And that includes how do we potentially look at raising up educators through NLC and those sorts of things now that we have a clearer timeline around the opening of the new spaces moving forward.
And I know I didn't touch base on it a little bit, but it was, so like our biggest challenge right now is finding qualified staff. So like in order for us to open our infant toddler center in 2026, like we will need an additional 4 fully qualified ECEs or infant toddler staff, and so that's something that like we are definitely working towards, and that's going to be like the bare minimum to get that program up and going that we will be working towards. But I think that's kind of all we have. If you guys have any questions, feel free. Like it's just been an amazing road like in these past 2 years with the YMCA, just seeing, you know, like what they've been able to bring in for our staff as far as, you know, benefits, everything like that for our staff, which is huge. And then, you know, seeing where we're gonna like, you know, end up, like we want to ensure that our programs stay viable. So we are looking to increase our numbers for school age, because like I said, like that is our lowest enrollment right now, so we're trying to get that up to ensure that we're able to keep that program within Tumbler. Like it was a need, the community reached out to us, like the families, and so it's been up and running since March 2023, so like just about a year now we've had that running. We do have a bit lower numbers, so we're, you know, working with the district as well to try to increase those numbers for sure. So yeah.
All right, well, thank you very much from both of you for coming before council and presenting and give us an update. Obviously what's going on now, what was going on before, but what we're looking forward to going ahead with the new opening in 2026. Going to allow council to ask a bunch of questions first, and then I got something for you.
Absolutely.
Councillor Knox-Center.
Thank you. I have a comment and a question.
Yeah.
That outdoor playground looks amazing.
It's amazing.
So cool. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, like it's been amazing to have.
Yeah, for sure. And the big question I hear a lot of people asking is, are you taking a wait list for your infant toddler positions yet, or spaces yet?
I will pass that to Lynette.
Yeah, so currently we're not. I think that we're a little bit premature. Like I'll feel much better when the dirt's been started to be dug at that location, and we're a little bit closer to completion to do that work. I think between now and then to do that is just probably not even a fair process in terms of children age out very quickly and all those other sorts. But we'll make sure when we do open a wait list that we give lots of notice to everyone so that it's really done equitably, and possibly using a lottery system has been really what's worked well in other locations.
Okay, thank you.
And I do know what we have done when parents have called me. I've said, you know, I encourage them to put them on our 3 to 5 wait list to start, because like dependent on like when we do open, how old their child is, like they, like Lynette said, like they might have already aged out of our infant toddler program by that point. So we have several young ones on our 3 to 5 wait list. So that is my biggest thing that I tell our families right now.
That's a really good point.
Yeah,
So I'll
absolutely.
pass that along to people who
Yeah.
ask. Thanks.
No worries.
Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kukalka. Thanks for coming in, Becky and Lynette. Appreciate hearing from you, and I appreciate all the efforts that we have in bringing qualified childcare here to Tumbler Ridge on the Childcare Task Force. Recruitment and retention seems to be the name of the game for us for everything these days.
Absolutely.
You know, unfortunately, I don't think there's a silver bullet, you know, with childcare teachers, nurses. I think all we can do is just learn from each other's successes and try and pass those along. We just had SC59 come in, and they talk about their successes utilizing Indeed to create virtual, not workshops, but like, you know, employment shows, you know, to bring people in, right? Like that, it's getting creative that way, you know? So, you know, good luck. If there's anything that we, come up with, hopefully we can bring it to council or the task force, so we can definitely work on that together. In terms of infant and toddler spaces, it looks like you're trying to hire 4 specialized infant and toddlers, so I'm gonna guess that's between 12 and 16 spaces you're looking to be able to open up for us?
So we'll be licensed for 12 spaces.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I have. Thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you. Councillor Julik.
Thanks for the presentation. I love the pictures. I always like the pictures. The after-school program at Tumbler Ridge or at the elementary school looks pretty fun too. Just to clarify, when you talk about, so I read that the possibility of keeping the current location to meet the needs of the growing resource community. So you guys are just keeping that on your radar.
Absolutely.
Letting us know to keep it on our radar.
Yeah, and because I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that potentially once we do have our new building that we'll move, because we're not sure. We don't
Right.
know, right? So
Yeah.
it's going to depend on, what the need of the community is and what we're able to actually offer during that time.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to clarify and make
Absolutely.
sure I was on the same page. Thanks.
No worries.
Okay, any other questions from council? Okay, I have a couple. I do have a couple comments. Thanks for supplying the documentation ahead of the meeting. Muchly appreciated. Gives an opportunity for me to pre-read it on the weekend. I think you did an awesome job out in the playground for the children that are out there. Hats off to you. And you made comments in regards to the current location. I think, the biggest thing there is making sure our staff is kept up to date
Absolutely.
on what your needs are going to be as you guys proceed through the building and the opening. I just think staff need to be aware of that, just because sometimes council gets into debates and starts thinking ahead, well, they'll be moving here, so let's start doing something different, when we don't know what your actual need is and we forgot to actually reach out. So
Yeah.
I just don't want to see that happen. I don't think council will let it go through that way. But biggest question I have for you, you mentioned in the last bullet the underutilized before and after school program. And lots of spaces, we need families to use the spaces and stuff to remain with that program. Is there a reasoning that you're seeing a downward swing there? Is there something that's going on that is hindering it?
Can I
think-
speak, Becky? for a sec?
Absolutely.
I don't know if it's a downward swing or as much as we never saw the uptake that we honestly thought that we would get. I think there's a couple things. I think the cost of school-age childcare has not been subsidized to the same amounts as the early years care has been, and that it's not $10 a day like the early years program is, and it's not eligible currently under the provincial guidelines or the federal funding to be $10 a day. So it is costlier for families. That being said, we're working, to offer it as cost effectively as we can. I also think that during the summer, and some of those times of school closure, that we're honestly competing with, and we had this happen in Vanderhoof, but almost competing with the district in a sense for your free programs, and people are happy with those, and that's terrific. I know what we've had success with in Vanderhoof as an example would be their district runs half-day programs, we run full-day programs, that sort of thing, so that we're not in competition, but yet we're serving all families. So some of those pieces have been super helpful. And then I also think that it is just costly, that families are really struggling just to make ends meet right now. And so having that extra cost when you've been in a community that has, families caring for other families' children or all of those things, that it takes time to grow as well. But we are really hopeful that we'll continue to see the use of the program and that families will take it upon us. We're hopeful that when we move to the new site, that there is a chance the school age will get funded under that same model, because they'd all be under one license, which would be super helpful to families. Obviously, 200 is a lot better than 400 or 500 so a month. I think those are the main reasons, truthfully.
Okay, and I appreciate that. And maybe that's something we can, maybe that's a takeaway for us from council side too, when we head off to meet with ministers and stuff, is to have that conversation in regards to, the difference in we're doing $10 a daycare for this. Is there some kind of subsidy that's coming forward from federal or provincial to assist in the other, the older, to help offset the cost of families? I mean, we see the cost of living goes up everywhere, whether it's food, gas, housing. Gas will be coming up as a delegation, so giving them a heads up that we'll be talking about the cost of gas. I don't know if you guys are actually competing with us in regards to our summer program that the district runs. I think it's the other way around. I think we may be competing with you. I
that
appreciate
could
your
be.
comment, but I'm wondering if it's the other way around. Because this conversation came up probably just before the summer. It had come up from council's side in regards to the summer program that the DTR does run, and to make sure that we changed the realm a bit on how we ran it, to try and make sure that we were opening it up so that we were not just taking spaces away from the from the YMCA. Almost called it the wrong name there. My understanding is kind of what we've heard, and maybe I'll have to take some stuff offline, but I thought it seemed to work really well the way we did it. But if it's not, I really do believe that as a DTR, we need to look into that too. When we have a company or organization running something that we are not, to me, getting into it where we're competing against a company that has done this because they were asked to, and now we have implemented something that is taking away from those spots. You're not able to fill them. And to me, when you have an organization that's unable to start filling seats, you start losing staff because you're not quite ready to open up a new facility, and you're probably trying to bump up in staff, and maybe you're not quite there yet. But I think if there's less children or youth attending the organization, obviously how is it to be able to hire more and more staff to get ready and prepared? So I think that's a concern from my side, but I think that's just something we'll need to dialogue, because the report that we received back from staff, it seemed like it was well attended from our residents, from our children, but it didn't seem, my understanding from that report, it was YMCA and the district worked together. So I just want to make sure we are definitely not taking away stuff like that. So thank you very much. Any other questions from council? Okay, off the topic, what else can we do for you, Becky? So I know through the district we offer passes. What else? Sounds like obviously, Councilor Norbury and Councilor Noxana sit on the Child Task Force.
Yeah.
But when we talk about needing more ECs, I know I just can't go and start transplanting people here. We know that.
Yeah.
But what else? What else can we look at in regards to maybe the task force taking some kind of lead on making sure that whether we look at some better housing options for helping to make sure we have some spots available? Or
And that's where we're kind of at right now is we do potentially have some ECs that are looking to relocate. However, they are struggling with the housing. So, I'm not sure exactly what that could look like. But I know, just kind of, it's a good question, honestly. I wish I had, the correct answer for you right now. I'm not sure if Lynette, if you want to touch in on anything with that, kind of looking for that, that specific answer.
Yeah, sure. I do know that we have had a few early childhood educators that have been interested in Tumbler Ridge, and then we've lost them at the house, the point of them trying to find housing. Mm-hmm. I think the other thing that I really want to bring back to the task force is, because of the housing crisis, is how maybe can we raise up some educators in the next year, possibly through, an initiative for employment through Mackenzie Trust or something like that. Those are just some of the kind of larger ideas that I've kind of been, you're building a new facility and you stay awake at night because you want to make sure it's going to operate at full capacity. And we also know that people need care for their children. So those are just a couple of the initiatives, I think. I do agree that anything that you can do to continue to raise the issue with the province is huge. And just, I think that, as we look towards a funded program, parts of what the province may also need to do is look for, there may only be 15 children in Tumbler Ridge that need school-age childcare, but how does the province ensure then that they're not demanding an 80% of a ratio, those types of things, right? Like they do in school districts for smaller rural communities. And I think there's a lot of work to be done there, and certainly I'm a part of that, but I do believe the more that they also hear that from councils across our rural and northern BC, that's super helpful as well. So I really appreciate that.
okay, thank you very much for your guys' responses there. And I think it is something, I know our senior CEO writing it down as soon as the question was asked and the responses. I do believe we will hear something in regards to housing very soon. There's been some conversations, can't really get into the deeps of it, but there has been some conversations, and this council will be having a conversation too. But, you know, we just need to make sure if that's one of the restraints to get ECs to move to our community, that we're well aware of it. I think maybe Councillor Norberg and Councillor Noxana would be if they sit on the task force. Maybe they're hearing it more and more there. But I think that's an option that we need to know about. And I think for advocacy through the government, I think we'll do our great job come UBCM. For sure. And we maybe, I'll reach out sooner, but last UBCM, I brought my backup. Most ministry staff or ministers mentioned how I had all my council there and they're my backup. So I meet with ministry quite often and when I have an opportunity. So I think this is an opportunity to try to help out.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right. Looks like there's no other questions. So thank you very much again for joining us and coming in and keeping us updated.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Okay, we're going to move on to the Tumbler Ridge Outdoor Recreation Association, TRORA. Sherri-Lynn Hewitt, Executive Director, Ryan Lamming, Trevor Cutler, and Curtis Majinski in attendance to present TRORA's annual report and to provide an update to Council on TRORA's progress and ongoing initiatives. And I wasn't sure who was going to join. I just know those folks were here, so I just thought I'd mention them all. Floor is yours.
We're here.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council, and staff. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Sherri-Lynn Hewitt, and I joined the team as interim executive director in July. And with me is our president and chair, Ryan Lamming. So we're grateful for the opportunity to present a summary of TRORA's 2024 annual report, a reflection of the progress we've made together, and a look at some of our exciting plans for 25. Our presentation is going to cover an overview of TRORA, its leadership, key achievements in 2024, community events that brought people together, financial highlights and planning for sustainability, and a look ahead to 2025. And these topics hopefully will give you a picture of how TRORA contributes to promoting sustainable outdoor recreation for everyone.
You got her. You're pretty good. Established in 2022, it brings together outdoor clubs, businesses, stakeholders, and community members to enhance outdoor recreation opportunities in Tumbler Ridge. We focus on building a strong, sustainable foundation for outdoor recreation while preserving the natural beauty of our areas, predominantly sustainable backcountry usage, and vision and mission. Advocate for responsible outdoor recreation while preserving the beauty of Tumbler Ridge for future generations. Our mission: strengthen community connections and enhance infrastructure and champion sustainable practices.
Now, because I had to have this document in last Wednesday, that was before our AGM on Thursday, there would have been a different picture up there. But TRORA is led by a team of passionate individuals committed to Tumbler Ridge's success. And as of last Thursday, our new board of directors consists of President Ryan Lamming, Community Representative, our Vice President Adriana Alvaz, Community Representative, Secretary Manda Meggs, Tumbler Ridge UNESCO Global Geopark Representative, Treasurer Jolene Couture, Wolverine Nordic Mountain Society Representative, Amanda Hanna, new to our board as Community Representative, Curtis Majinski, Tumbler Ridge Mountain Bike Association Representative, Trevor Cutler, Ridge Riders Snowmobile Association Rep, and Tim Croston with the Grizzly Valley ATV Club. Together, this team works closely with the District of Tumbler Ridge, local clubs, and stakeholders to drive meaningful progress forward.
In 24, we focused on our strategic priorities: collaboration, bringing together outdoor clubs to work more effectively; stability, building a sustainable and respected organization; enhancement, advocating for trail development and outdoor infrastructure improvements; partnerships, strengthening relationships with Indigenous communities, businesses, and regional stakeholders; sustainability, educating and supporting policies that balance outdoor recreation with environmental preservation. And then these priorities guide both our short-term projects as well as our long-term vision. In 2024, we hired an ED. That was a big, really big step for us, and we couldn't have done that without, obviously, the district and SPMT. Joint TCP, so working with Jesse Olson, this has been a big deal in the last few months for sure. This Trails Master Plan is going to change things. We're really excited about that, and love working with Jesse. The grant and aid, again, another big DTR supported funding and partnership and advanced community engagement. So being out there with the volunteers, club support. We started our website development. So we're still a really initial, we had to ask for some, what the heck's the word? Match funding, but we had the extensions because it was, we're getting long in the tooth. We're doing so many things at one time. We have a draft membership structure. So that's another key aspect to TRORA, and we're really excited about that. And then these milestones are possible thanks to the strong partnerships and dedication of all those involved. Next slide, please.
Strengthening community through events. These events not only bring residents together, but also help position Tumbler Ridge as a premier outdoor recreation destination. And the first task that I received when I started this position was our first annual golf tournament. And that was a huge success. We raised just over $20,000 in cash donation. We had over $8,000 in kind, which resulted in each of our clubs and TRORA itself receiving $2,957 in funding. Promoting this event throughout our community, Dawson Creek, Chatwin, and Fort St. John, there was overwhelming support from the businesses for what TRORA stands for and what we're doing. So lots of excitement and looking forward to our event next year in July. Hopefully you'll all be there.
And thanks to the district again with the help in that. Emperor's Challenge, there was over 600 participants. We volunteered at those events. Austin, the Grizzly Valley ATV Club, the 4-part mini-series. It's had a pretty astounding impact on the outdoor motorized group engagement alone. The reach was between 4,500 and 11,000. So we're reaching far and wide with this. It's not just Peace Region. This is all over the globe. I wish Tim was here because he could have given a little bit more of an insight as to how far that reach is. But just on the YouTube page alone for the Visit Tumbler Ridge YouTube, I think there was 1,100 views total on that in 4 years. 4 years. You're almost at 5,000 now, and that's just since the release of these videos, and that will just progressively. So Councilman Hoffman had a concern of, is this tangible and how is it recorded? How do we know that these videos are gonna? There's your proof in the pudding. We've more than tripled the views just to Visit Tumbler Ridge YouTube, so that's awesome. We're really, really excited about that. Ridge Rider Snowmobile Association, they had their first ever FMX event, and I don't know if any of you were there, but it was pretty cool, and it went over very, very well. So we, no, it's okay. I've been there. And then I'll talk on the snowmobile show too. So district went down, Jesse and others from Steve, and I can't speak on that snowmobile show enough. How many people ask still, where the heck is Tumbler Ridge? It still blows my mind that I still have to answer that every time, but it is countless times. So this is good for Tumbler Ridge to be in these events. I'll pass over to you.
Okay. In addition to our events that we host, we've been extending our local efforts and expanding our reach as well throughout the region and province. This year, TRORA attended Northern BC Tourism Summit in Prince George. Again, it was great to be able to network and connect with so many tourism leaders. We've also been in collaborations with Rec Sites Trails in BC, or Rec Site Trails BC, sorry. They are coming in this week for a meeting with our board to discuss more around the process of Section 57s and aligning on projects, and what we can and can't do when it comes to certain trails for maintenance and moving forward. We've also started outreach with First Nations, which is something that's very important to us, not only in championing for the environment, but making sure we have inclusion and proper practices moving forward. And I think a big highlight for us is reaching out and starting engagement with our local youth when it comes to educating on outdoor practices and what we do. Those folks are our future and a great place to start. We were able to speak with 31 students just last month. And all of those students, they've been on a trail, whether they were hiking, skiing, ATVing, snowmobiling. Everyone in the room had their hands up. When it came to how these trails are developed and maintained and what goes into it, there was only maybe 2 or 3 that actually knew what it took and had no idea. In the end, we walked away with 18 of those students signing up and wanting to be part of TRORA as volunteers and initiatives moving forward. So that's going to be a big part into 2025.
18 signed up. That was impressive, to say the least. It was very humbling to see these youth that were both enlightened but invigorated to do something with that, and we're really excited to grow that. And so that means WNMS, Snowmobile Club, all our everyone in our associations are going to have an unlimited, like 18, but the amount of hours that they get, because it was what, 40 hours? 30 hours that they have to have?
It's recommended.
Recommended that they have. We might get it all. In 2024, TRORA continued to benefit from the original funding from the SPMT, so South Peace Mackenzie Trust, Canoe Resources and Community Forests. Did you want to touch base on this one, or did I steal this slide from you?
You can keep going now.
Oh, okay. Grateful to the district for the grant and aid that covered match funding to allow the final release of funds from SPMT. Support operational costs and covered match funding from NDIT for the website. We received a generous donation from the Tumbler Ridge Royal Canadian Legion of $47,1720. Thank you so much to the Legion for that. And then began working on a membership structure to ensure local term financial stability. These successes allow us to move forward confidently in 2025. Oh man, I stole so much, I'm sorry. Okay, so for 2020, so what does the future look like? We're excited about what's next, finalizing and launching our membership structure in Q1 to provide a stable foundation. Launching the TRORA website by July 2025, improving accessibility and engagement. So that we're going to help the other associations as well, feed them all their marketing and advertising, push people to buy memberships. Supporting clubs and delivering ambitious new projects that they have on the go. Expanding our volunteer recruitment efforts. You want to touch base on the volunteer network
right
here?
now, we are working on our volunteer policy for TRORA and all of the clubs to benefit from. So we'll be looking at, one of the things in going in with the students is realizing often we look and go, okay, we're all here in Tumbler Ridge, we're locals, we've been however long, and we know what's out there and what's going on and what it takes. I think a lot of our community is unaware exactly of what goes into our trails, and we kind of just take for granted that they're in our backyard. So I go hike, I snowmobile, and not necessarily engage in memberships or the volunteer efforts. When we left the high school, not only did we have 18 students, there were 3 adults. And those adults have been in this community for almost 20 years and had no idea and felt the need to put their names down to also sign up. So looking at ways of bringing our volunteers together and highlighting their efforts is going to be a big part of the drive.
And then enhancing regional partnerships to further promote Tumbler Ridge as a recreation destination. These initiatives are designed to build on this year's success and keep our momentum going. For acknowledgements, together we thrive. So our community partners, District of Tumbler Ridge, South Peace Mackenzie Trust, Canoe Resources, TR Community Forest, TR Legion. Volunteers and founding clubs, we can't thank you enough for all your time and dedication and passion. Together, we're shaping Tumbler Ridge into a vibrant, sustainable, and thriving outdoor recreation hub. As we close, we want to extend our thanks, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having us. I love being in this room. And then to our community partners, sponsors, and volunteers whose contributions drive our progress. If you look at our board, the amount of people on our board that are a part of another board and a part of another board, it just speaks volumes of we need these people to grow and just keep doing what we're doing, but we need more. And I'm hopeful that TRORA can help in that regard. To the people of Tumbler Ridge who share in our vision and inspire our work, we look forward to continuing our collaboration and advancing Tumbler Ridge.
All right, well, thank you very much for coming in as a delegation and giving us an update in regards to 2024 and what you have planned for 2025. Before I go to council for questions, I have one question to start it off with. What are you asking from council for 2025?
We haven't officially had that discussion with our board, but right now we're thinking that it would be the green fees and cart rentals for our golf tournament. And again, as our budget isn't completely finalized, right now, one of the things that we're also looking into, and we've got received one quote and another one coming for board training, not only for the TRORA board, but for the 4 associations underneath us. So that could potentially be an ask as well.
Okay, thank you for that.
I'll elaborate on the training too. So there's also with Wilderness First Aid, chainsaw, and all these things for these youth that are volunteering. So training as a whole. So we're looking at, I think we budgeted about 10,000 for the year of training. And then the recognizing, like we've wanted the board training for almost 2 years now. So we've found somebody with a quote in hand, and it was what, $1,800? About $2,000 there. So you're sitting around the 12K.
Okay, thank you very much. In regards to the golf tournament, I would reach out to staff because there's a deadline to apply for that. I'm not sure the deadline off beat here. I can't remember. It's sometime in January. You have to have your request in by, so it gets in front of council because we obviously have so many that we give out. Doesn't mean we can't give more, but I would reach out to staff to make sure you get that in time so that it doesn't get missed. I'm going to open it up to questions from council. Councilor Norberry.
Thank you, Mayor Kukalka. You know, since we're talking about the golf tournament, it's amazing to hear that you're able to take that support from us and turn it into $28,000 worth of cash and in-kind. Congratulations. Well done to you and your clubs. You know, to Ryan, glad you love being here. We love having you, even if you do read a lot from the slides. I can't say that every time. Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks for coming in. I really subscribe to the idea that we're stronger together. And by having this initiative, having all the groups working together, we know we're not duplicating services, but instead we're adding one whole refined product. And with the adventure tourism growing, I think we definitely need to grab on to that shooting star and promote it the best that we can. And you're doing a great job, so thank you.
Councilor Disso.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, thank you for coming in and giving us this presentation. And I am one of those people who has been following those little videos. I just finished watching the Onion Lake one, and that was quite the ride, I must say. So again, thank you, and I'm glad you're all working together under one umbrella, and you guys seem to be doing really, really well. So keep up the great work.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Okay, I have a couple. When is or has there been a thought by the TRORA organization to add more other clubs as pillars?
So that is something that we've thought about what that'll look like, but for right now, our priority is on establishing our membership with our founding 4 associations, but looking at having affiliate clubs join in later, because ultimately we would love to have all outdoor recreation in Tumbler Ridge under the umbrella and reaping the benefits.
We want to commit to the 4 first, get established, get our training, get everything under smooth, we know what we're doing, and then expand from there. And that is the plan, is to house as many as we can. If an organization, we've already been approached by the Motocross Association, it's newly formed, absolutely. Come on, we're better together.
Okay, appreciate that. I know council's already mentioned that, I mentioned at the beginning there, but hats off to you in the golf tournament. Well done. I actually attended it through my business, and well organized, well thought out, well planned. Hats off to the group that took part of that and organizing. I think you guys did a great job there, and to be able to see that offsetting some dollars in regards to green fees and cart rentals and what an organization can make in regards to what you take away from that. $20,000 is a lot of money. I believe I don't want to throw the whole number out there, but it's only a few grand that we actually donate in regards to the green fees and the carts. Like, it's not, huge. It is huge when we say it's taxation, but when an organization takes that away and makes $20,000 to be able to help out the other clubs that they're part of, I think that's a no-brainer. So hats off to you guys for doing that. I know, Ryan, you'd mentioned earlier in regards to board training, and I just want to be straightforward. It's coming up in our agenda. It was a notice of motion by one of the councillors. Councillor Julick actually brought it forward. And it kind of talks about it. I mean, obviously there'll be a debate, so, and see how we move forward. But just, you might want to, reach out maybe tomorrow or after our regular meeting to see where that goes. It might be something that looks, once we have a debate, but I know where I'm leaning towards, where the DTR maybe looks at some costs on putting on some of these courses to train boards instead of boards taking their money and actually paying for it. That's something I'll have a debate with this council, but that's my thoughts, is how do you ask organizations to take dollars we gave you, whether that's a grant aid or a fee for service, and do it. So you might want to just connect with us after, or even with staff. The other question I have is in regards to your website, and you're planning for July 2025. Is that a solid date?
We have to. That's our deadlines. So we're well on our way. What's the life?
So the membership structure was the key piece that had to be in with the website. So that's why the request for the extension. Our website, or our membership structure, has already been before our board for the last 2 meetings. And we are looking at a separate Saturday in January to have further discussions with all of our clubs and their boards as well. So it is a priority to have this going and out.
Okay, perfect. Just a couple other comments. I attended your AGM. I think you guys did a great job there as well. So thanks for opening that up. I mean, obviously you have to, but opening it up to the rest of the community. I think you guys did a great job at your AGM, and it's great to see individuals realizing what TORA is and new member coming on board as a community member. I think it's fantastic. The other comments I'll make is I did do the FMX. I did show up for that. Again, great job by the sledding club to put that on. They did an outstanding job. I don't know the total amount that was raised by themselves, but they've also taken that money and donated back to our community. So I think they'll come out with the numbers. I don't want to speak on their behalf. But again, there's another organization that's tied to TORA that has done something with some funds from the municipality, from the taxpayer, and now has made money to give back to organizations, the food bank and some other ones that they've decided to select. So great job there. Councillor Dussault mentioned it, but the Oster Cruiser event, I didn't attend. But I did attend at the Vic Center after the membership ride. So anybody that held a membership with the ATV, Grizzly Valley ATV Club, could partake in that the first ride that went out to Goat Canyon. Again, there was multiple riders there, multiple people at the Vic Center. Again, great job by the ATV Club in Tor. So I think just shows what you've done since 2022. We're 2024 going into 2025. So great job by your guys' organization is all me. All right, any other questions for council? All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great night. Okay, we're going to move on to Pacific Northern Gas. David Keir, sorry if I pronounced it wrong, Director of Business Development and Stakeholder Relations, invited by council to present the impacts of the application with the British Columbia Utilities Commission for acceptance of a schedule of anticipated capital expenditures for the Tumbler Ridge Gas Plant Rehabilitation Project. David, welcome. The floor is yours.
Good evening, folks. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, audio is a little soft on this end, so hopefully it's coming through okay. So Mayor Kakalka, Council, thank you so much for the invitation. I'd like to also introduce my colleague, Amanda Ward. So maybe I'll just pass it over to her for a brief introduction.
Sure. Hello. My name is Amanda Ward. I'm our Vice President of Regulatory Affairs, Legal and Gas Supply, here to support David, who will be leading the conversation, just if you have questions specific to our regulatory application and thoughts on that front. Nice to meet you all.
Thanks, Amanda. Now, folks, I did send through a presentation, and I know it was later than would normally be required to include it in your agenda packages. What's the process? Do you want me to put it on screen, or do you have the capability to do it on your end?
No, you'll have to put it on the screen.
Okay. Sorry, my system's going a bit haywire on me here. What happens when you go away on leave for a couple of weeks? I've just had some shoulder surgery, folks. I was intending to be there in person. So I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to do this virtually. Is this showing up okay? Can you see an agenda on your screen?
Yep, we can.
Fantastic. So I thought what I'd do is just provide a little bit of context about PNG and our unique system in Tumbler Ridge. We're grateful for the letter that you provided to one of our regulatory proceedings for the Tumbler Ridge gas plant reinforcement. I recognize that you have concerns about affordability and concerns about rate impact. We share those concerns. I think you'll find the context that we go through to be helpful in understanding where we are and how we might move forward. Welcome any questions and comments as we go. So perhaps what I'll do is I'll stop after every slide. And then if folks have any questions, please feel free to jump in. So a little bit of an overview. We'll talk about what we've proposed in the regulatory proceeding, walk through some of the directional rate impacts, and then, some questions at the end as well, if there's any left. So PNG regulated utility, regulated cost of service utility, which means we recover our costs of service through rates, and our regulator is the BC Utilities Commission. Kind of two chunks or two streams of rates. There's the delivery charge, which is where we recover the cost of moving gas through our pipeline network. And then there's the commodity charge, which are the actual molecules themselves. What's kind of unique for PNG, different from BC Hydro, for instance, is that we have 5 unique service areas, Tumbler Ridge being one of them. And in each of those unique service areas, we recover the costs of service to residential, small and large commercial and industrial customers discreetly and separately. So that means that the rates for delivery in Tumbler are different from the rates in Fort St. John, which are different from the rates in Dawson, PNG West and Grand Isle. 5 unique service areas. Whereas the commodity charge is now spread equally across all of the customers. So everybody pays the same. It's what we call a postage stamp rate. Any questions so far?
Council? Nope, go ahead.
So what makes Tumbler really unique is that we have almost 40 kilometers of gas pipeline that runs from the Tumbler Ridge gas plant, which is in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. So this is unique. In no other part of our system does PNG operate a gas processing plant. So what does this plant do? In effect, we receive raw gas from our upstream producer, Canadian Natural Resources. They have a bunch of gas fields. They have sweet gas and they have sour gas. Sour gas has something called hydrogen sulfide in it. And so our little Tumbler Ridge gas plant turns that sour gas and makes it sweet, takes out the hydrogen sulfide, turns it into pipeline quality sales gas, and then moves it in the first instance through a transmission pipeline. That's the red piece on your screen. And the first stop is the Quintet mine, which I'm just delighted has been restarted after 20 years of being in care and maintenance. That little purple piece, if you can see, is the 3 kilometers of line that goes down to the mine itself. And then it continues on past Quintet and it goes to the Canadian Natural Meter Station. And then the green is another 12 kilometers of pipeline that takes it all the way into town. And for Tumbler, what's different about Tumbler compared to all of the other areas is that the delivery charge includes the gas plant as well as the pipeline. Whereas in other parts of the PNG system, it's just pipeline. Any questions on this slide?
Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakaka. Can you expand a little more on your last statement? The cost includes the gas plant as well as the pipeline. What are we talking about includes the gas plant? Like, does that mean, yeah, I'll just leave it there. I'm sure you can do a better job at explaining it than my question could.
Oh, so maybe I'll just go back to this slide again. So we have these 5 different service areas, and the delivery charges for each of the service areas are unique. Commodity is the same. Postage stamp, spread like peanut butter across all of the customers, all of the rate classes. Everybody pays the same commodity. But for delivery in Tumbler, I have a gas plant. We have to recover the costs of operating the gas plant, as well as the costs of operating and maintaining the pipeline. And so that's why you see a higher delivery charge in Tumbler compared to Dawson and Fort St. John. Although the delivery charge for Tumbler is less than in the West.
Follow up, Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakaka. If this is what's costing, like Tumbler Ridge, the large delivery fees, why can't we just have the natural gas refined at a different location and have it shipped to us?
It's a great question, and as I move through the next couple of slides, hopefully that'll become a little bit more clear about some of the alternatives that we might have available to us.
Great.
So let's just hold that one.
Councillor Clickash.
Yes, sir. How much water is in the gas that you're supplying to the town?
There's no water, so it's sweet, dry gas that is supplied to the town. The water is removed.
You're sure about that, eh? I believe there is water in it. There's water vapor expelled from the burning of this gas, and that means that the water is in the gas.
I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing, but what I heard is that you think there's water vapor in the gas?
I know that you're allowed up to 6% water in the gas, and is that what you're aiming for, is 6%? Or is it absolutely dry?
Subject to check, I'll check an engineering sheet that I have once I'm finished the presentation. But I think it's extremely small, like 0.2% or something in that order of magnitude. It certainly is not 6% water.
Well,
But I'll double check the water specs and come back to you.
okay, thanks.
I should say as well that this is pipeline quality gas, and so there's regulated pipeline specifications, and the sweet gas that comes out of the Tumbler Ridge plant meets those pipeline specifications. But I will come back and give you the specs. Or maybe Amanda, do you have the water spec? You could dig that up while we're talking?
I can, yep.
Awesome, thank you. So this next slide is just an aerial of the plant. It's an older plant. I think it was originally constructed, might have been the 80s, could have been early 90s. Folks might know better than I. But the sour gas comes in. This is the raw gas from the Canadian Natural Resources gas fields. Bunch of different wells. It comes in and it's consolidated, comes into the plant inlet on the left of your screen, and then moves through the plant. The impurities are removed. The hydrogen sulfide is removed. Most of the carbon dioxide is removed. That's the blue coming in from left to right. And then the yellow coming out is the sweet, dry sales gas. So before we got to the regulatory application, we looked at a number of alternatives. How can PNG ensure that we can provide safe, reliable gas service to the community? It's a dedicated, a single source of supply. We don't have any other pipelines that we can tap presently. And because it's a sour gas plant, the first thing we looked at is, well, If we're receiving a combination of sweet and sour gas today, is there an opportunity to look at the supply, the composition of the gas that we're receiving? The next option is to say, well, if we have a sour gas processing facility, and if we're going to receive sour gas, we need to make sure that the plant can do that reliably and the plant can do that safely. That's the gas plant reinforcement alternative. That assumes no change in the composition of the sour inlet gas that we're receiving. A third alternative was to say, well, what if we abandon the plant and we build a new pipeline to a separate source of sweet gas supply so that we don't have to run the plant anymore? That proved to be a very expensive alternative. And the fourth alternative, which was also expensive, was to bring in liquefied natural gas. Now, we serve the town on liquefied natural gas when we do work on the plant. You wouldn't see any difference in service. It's an uninterrupted supply. But for instance, we've taken the plant down a couple of times in the last few months, both on a short-term basis and for 10 days in September to do some work. And we supplied the town on liquefied natural gas during that period of time. Any questions on this slide?
Nope. Go ahead.
All right, so this is what we submitted to the commission. We said, okay, today we receive a combination of sweet gas and sour gas under our commercial arrangements with our upstream supplier. And so based on those arrangements, we said, well, the plant is in need of some repair and rehabilitation, so we need to get this work done. We filed something called an application for expenditure approval, and because we're a regulated utility, we can't just go ahead and do the work without the commission approving it. There's a summary of the reinforcement work in the top right hand of the screen, but the big number is $5 million, of which $1 million of that was spent already. We did some work in September of 2024 to make sure the plant could run reliably through the winter. And then we have a second phase of work, about $4 million, which is presently scheduled to be completed sometime in 2025. Could be Q2, it could be Q3. But right now, this application, as well as that phase 2 work, is on hold. Amanda, do you want to maybe provide any additional context about the application and our current deferral?
Sure, and I'm happy to answer questions. So we filed the application anticipating that we would make these expenditures, and since then have had CNRL approach us to discuss an alternative that could allow us to defer these expenditures. And so the reason it's on hold is that we're pursuing that alternative at the moment, which we can't discuss because it's confidential, but to say if we don't need to spend the money, that's obviously a preferable option from our perspective. Is there other color you wanted me to provide, David?
That's helpful, and maybe we'll open the floor up for questions on the application itself, if anyone has any questions or concerns.
Nope, none. Go ahead. You're going to get lots of questions at the end.
Okay. So directionally then, with this application that we filed, if we were to spend the $5 million for the plant reinforcement, we would see directionally delivery charge increases of about 25%. That's across the board for residential and commercial. And recognize that you've provided in your letter of comment, an overview of how that would impact the community and the challenges that would create. With the Quintet mine coming online, that makes a really big difference. And so that 25% that we've identified in the application is really just a proxy. It's a directional marker. And so with Quintet restarting and Quintet significantly increasing their use of gas, it'll have a downward impact on rates. We won't know the precise numbers until such time as we contract with Quintet for firm service, and we can't contract with Quintet for firm service until we confirm the supply alternative that we're going to proceed with. There's two other pieces, if you will, kind of tools in the rates and regulatory toolkit. The first one is rate rebalancing. So this is when we say, here's this bucket of costs which go into the delivery charge. And those costs are allocated between residential, small commercial, large commercial, and industrial customers. And if there's a series, I won't go into the details of the regulatory criteria, but if you apply those criteria to ensure that all of the customer classes are paying their fair share, you would see some customers have higher rates and some customers have lower rates. And in particular for residential, if we were to rebalance rates, rates would go down directionally. What we could also look to do is to say, here's this Tumbler Ridge gas plant, and it's the only part of the PNG system where we have a gas plant. And so is it appropriate that the costs for the gas plant are in the Tumbler Ridge delivery charge? What if we took the costs out of the delivery and we called them commodity, and then we applied them across all PNG customers across all of our service areas? That would be a reclassification of those costs from delivery to commodity. That would also have a downward impact on rates. This is my last slide, but I think it's a helpful one to end on. So perhaps we can use this as the framework for moving into some questions. Daryl?
You bet. Thank you very much, David. And I appreciate you coming forward, especially after we received the letter that you'd sent in looking at getting the utility commission to allow upping their rates. Obviously, we've heard lots from our community and our residents and concerns. Previously, on our previous council, even maybe the council before that, when there was talk about Quintet, Tech Coal back then before Canuma has bought them, that they were talking about coming on board then, and PNG was concerned there wasn't enough gas and we were going to look at a liquid gas pipeline coming in on semis. So are we, am I hearing you correct? We have enough gas now?
No, it's a bit tricky, and there's things I can and things I can't share based on the confidentiality arrangements we have in place with our upstream producer. But needless to say, as a utility, we want to ensure that we've got enough raw gas supply coming into the plant to be able to ensure the provision of firm service. And when a customer like Quintet restarts after 20 years, they're not looking at 1 or 2 years of service, they're looking at 5, 10, 15 years of service. And so we need to ensure that the system has been reinforced, that we have the right supply arrangements in place to be able to meet those commitments.
Okay, and I just got one other question before I go to council. I believe this discussion happened previously with PNG in the district of Tumbler Ridge when it came to the gas plant and looking at changing that so it was actually covered across the board under commodity. How far have we looked into that? So instead of it being that Tumbler Ridge residents and businesses are paying for the gas plant that PNG only has one of, and it's in Tumbler Ridge. But there was talk previously about making sure that was listed under a commodity so that it would go across all 5, not just one.
But Daryl, what I think I'm hearing is that you've had prior conversations with PNG before my tenure about that 4th bucket, that reclassification of the gas plant cost to commodity. That's not a new concept, is what I'm hearing.
Correct.
It is foreshadowed in our application as well, right? It is an alternative we were actively thinking about and trying to signal when we filed the application. It's just that the application is not where we would ask for that. It would be in a separate rates or revenue requirements filing. So we did signal that was something we were looking at to try to mitigate the rate impacts of this investment.
Okay, appreciate that. But this was talked about probably 6 years ago, about the same concept, to try and lower the rates so we didn't see the highs and the lows in regards to delivery fees within our community and our commercial area. And my understanding that P&G had looked at that and was moving forward with that. But hearing from David, we have not even started that step.
Thank you for both Amanda and I to speak to what happened 6 years ago. Unfortunately, I've only been with the company 2.5 years, and I think Amanda just passed her 1-year anniversary. So kind of hard to speak to the intent then, but I can say that the intent now is if we move forward with a gas plant operation, reclassification is very much a tool in the toolkit that we think would make sense and is fair and reasonable. And here's the but. But if we no longer operate the gas plant, if we're able to find an alternative, for instance, if we can go back to supply alternative 1, if we can look to modify the composition of the gas coming into the plant so we don't have to do the rehabilitation work, we don't have to spend this additional $4 million in order to process sour gas, we think that's a better solution.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Norbury and then Councillor Clickash.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Kikalikan. I'm glad that P&G has the thoughts of how to reduce costs to the residents in Tumbler Ridge, because I don't think I've had a more vocal issue from residents, except regarding the costs of their gas bills. Like, I apologize because, you know, I feel the frustrations of our residents. You know, we had multiple individuals go around with a petition to try and, you know, to get these delivery fees down because they're the highest in the region. Our rates are 50% higher. It's way too much. So, like, my question is, like, I understand the structure that P&G is allowed to operate because of the BC Utilities Commission, and you guys are allowed to make some money. Who oversees that you're providing a cost-effective service?
Yeah, that's very much the role of the regulator. So when you have a utility, whether it's a gas utility or an electric utility, the Utility Commission's job is to make sure that P&G is prudently incurring costs and then is prudently recovering those costs through rates. And that's why the Commission has to approve the costs and the Commission has to approve the rates.
If I could add, David, you know, this proceeding, this filing we made is asking the Commission to say that they believe that this investment is needed. So this is the prudency of our operations question. The actual cost recovery is done through our revenue requirements applications. But, you know, if you have a decision that said it's a prudent investment in the first instance, that obviously helps give you more certainty around cost recovery. They certainly look at prudency of implementation to make sure that not only was it a prudent needed investment, but that you did it properly, you did it prudently as well. So there's kind of two kicks at the can.
Follow-up, Councillor Norbury.
Thank you for that. Now, is this review of your service delivery, is that done yearly, quarterly? Yeah.
So if you could, so are you meaning that whether they're looking at whether we are doing a good job in providing gas? Is that what you're?
The cost effectiveness of it, right? So, like, when there's a free market, I believe that the tension between the competitiveness of the market makes organizations operate at the most cost effective level. Now, I'm just trying to ascertain as to what is ensuring that P&G is operating at that most cost effective level.
I see. So that is very much what the Utilities Commission is meant to do. So the point is, when there is no competition and you have a monopoly provider, the Utilities Commission steps in as the economic regulator to make sure that we're providing cost-effective service to our customers.
So when was that reviewed? When was that review completed? Is that done on a yearly basis? Is it ever been done?
Oh yeah, so for sure. So that usually comes up through our revenue requirements applications, which are usually for 2-year periods. In 2022, it was a 1-year period. So we propose our costs that we intend to incur over that period based on forecasts, together with a rate of return, which is regulated. And the Commission examines those costs and examines what we propose to do and makes a decision on whether we can collect revenue equal to those costs or whether they're going to disallow costs for being not cost effective. So every time we make a revenue requirements application, that is the point of that application.
Thank you.
Councillor Clickash.
Yes, now we have rate rebalancing, and this is for the residential and commercial customers. If we went that route and spread the costs all over all the customers, what happens if Canuma starts using a heck of a lot more gas than they are right now when we make this agreement? Does that mean that you'll have to bring in LNG to cover the expanded use and the amount that of LNG that's required to supply all of us? And at what cost would that be? Would the rate go up considerably, or what?
So rate rebalancing.
Good question, and there's, maybe
Sorry.
Amanda, I could start with this
Yeah,
one.
go.
There's,
Yeah.
there's a lot of moving parts there. So what sounds like a bad news story with the plant reinforcement from a rate perspective, you go, hey, hold on a second, P&G, 25% increase. We can't deal with that. That's too much. But with Quintet restarting and the significant load that they represent, if we can secure the long-term gas supply from our upstream producer so that we can provide Quintet with firm gas service, that will result in a significant directional downward movement in rates. Part of that conversation is to look at LNG support as an overall system reinforcement and system resilience consideration. Because right now, we use LNG to support the town when we do work at the plant. We also use LNG to support Quintet for that period of time. We may consider the use of LNG on a more permanent basis so that we provide resilience to both the town and Quintet to firm up any shortfalls in the security of supply around the gas that's coming into our system, with or without the plant. And my hope is that the overarching impact of that will be that rates will be held neutral and could possibly even go down as opposed to go up. Everything we're doing is designed to say, how do we make sure that we provide reliable supply? How do we do that prudently and efficiently? What's the best alternative? And how do we make sure rates move this direction as opposed to this direction? That's what we do.
Follow-up, council? Oh, hang on.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to add, the rate rebalancing, really, just to take some of the complexity, what David said is absolutely true. Rate rebalancing is a regulatory mechanism that essentially says, what are your total costs? Like, what's the size of your pie? And now, how big of a piece of pie does each rate class get based on how they trigger costs? So it would be a shuffling within the pie that exists. It doesn't create new costs. And I think that would be a positive reshuffling for Tumbler Ridge customers as well. So it's a bit of a red herring in the sense of it's another moving piece that we're working through. But what David said is true. It's not changing the total cost allocation, like the size of the pie.
So if you are increasing the amount of LNG to the area because Quintet has doubled their requirement, isn't the cost going to go up for the town?
What my hope is that, so you're absolutely right that the LNG commodity is much more expensive. So for instance, the current commodity charge, I'm just going to use round numbers, is about $2.60 a gigajoule. Every customer in all of P&G's service area pays $2.60 per GJ for the gas molecule right now. LNG is more expensive. LNG is in the $15 to $20 a gigajoule range. But because we spread those commodity costs across all customers in all service areas, even if we had $20 a GJ commodity for Tumbler, it would just basically mean that everyone's commodity charge might go up, say, by 5 cents, $2.60 to $2.65. Does that make sense?
Yes, okay, thank you.
We would still have to recover the LNG infrastructure, but the LNG infrastructure, if we can build it in a way that it provides resilience to the town as well as Quintet, which I think is the right solution, frankly, to ensure that we've got sufficient resilience, we need to make sure that the gas stays on if there's a supply constraint. And those costs will need to be recovered through rates. And my hope is that if we can lock in Quintet for the right term at the right volume, that will protect. Quintet's a wonderful opportunity for residential and commercial customers to pay less. Quintet is working wonders for your service area.
Councillor Julik.
So a couple of questions. Your plant is managed by yourselves, like PNG, or is it managed by CNRL? I just know when you're doing some presenting, I just kind of got mixed up a bit.
It's owned and operated by Pacific Northern Gas.
Okay.
Canadian Natural simply provide the raw gas to the plant inlet.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I wanted to clarify. So, and what you said in your presentation, if I understood you correctly, is the application right now is on hold because you're possibly working out an arrangement with CNRL that will make it so that the plant upgrades don't need to be done?
That's the thrust of it for sure, because right now we have a sour gas processing plant, and the sour gas processing equipment needs to be replaced and upgraded. That's the $4 million. So if I only need to do that work, we only need to do that work if we still have sour gas showing up at the plant inlet. If I can contract for sweet gas at the plant inlet, then I can avoid that phase 2 work.
Okay. And finally, so you talked earlier about Tumbler Ridge is the only one who gets their gas from a plant. So the other 4 communities, where does that come from and how does their cost compare to ours?
Sure. So if we use maybe Dawson and Fort St. John as an example, Amanda, help me out. Do we have a dozen different interconnection points to sales gas pipelines? For instance, there's the Enbridge pipeline, there's ARC pipelines, there's Encana pipelines, there's a bunch of different delivery points from different pipeline companies. And those companies receive their gas from other upstream producers, the large plants in the Dawson region.
Okay, and so then what do their costs look like compared to ours?
Yeah, just as a simple comparison, do you want just a delivery charge comparison or an all-in delivery and commodity comparison?
I would say, like, what does a bill look like at the end of the month for a house that burns the same amount of gas as a house in Dawson Creek, like in Tumbler
Sure,
versus
so
Dawson?
let's say that the combined delivery and commodity charge for a Tumbler Ridge customer today is about $15.50 a gigajoule. Mm-hmm. And in Dawson and Fort St. John, it's $9 a gigajoule. And in the PNG West system, it's $19 a gigajoule.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Councillor Noxena.
Thank you. I recognize that phase 2 is on hold because of conversations with CNRL that you can't divulge at this time. But what sort of timeline are we looking at until we have this information? Because ultimately our residents want to know sooner rather than later where their gas is going to come from and if they're going to be able to afford it.
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, what's the timeline that we want, Amanda? I would like to get this deal done, in weeks. But it's probably in the, I don't know, what do you reckon, Amanda? 2 to 3 month time frame?
Yep.
Follow up?
Yeah, just to follow up on, after this conversation happens, is there still going to be an opportunity to look at rate rebalancing or reclassifying your plant to a gas commodity? And what would the timeline be for those? Because ultimately, we want our rate lower at the moment, whatever happens going forward with this CNRL conversation.
I think it depends on whether we need to proceed with the plant reinforcement work. If we don't have the plant reinforcement work, it probably doesn't make a lot of sense to go down the path of rebalancing and reclassification because those costs go away. If we have to proceed with some kind of plant reinforcement work, then I think it makes sense to proceed, potentially, Amanda, sometime in 2025 with a rate design application.
Yeah, that's right at the moment. What our plan is once we get through our revenue requirements application, which we will file in February, our next revenue requirements filing. When we get the decision from the commission that sets our rates, we will then look at our total cost of service and how it gets allocated across our various classes. And at that time could propose a change to how the gas plant costs are allocated between commodity and delivery. So I would expect it later 2025.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from council? Just curious, David, were we able to find out the water content? Councillor Klikash asked that earlier.
We were. So I'm going to pull it up and use words that actually mean little to me as a lawyer, but David can fill in the blanks. So it says that the sweet gas must be free of water and hydrocarbons in liquid form and shall not contain more than 64.1 milligrams of water per cubic meter at a -40 C dew point. So David, feel free to turn that into plain language.
So I thought it was, less than 1%. I thought that translates to about 0.2%, but how about we take that one back as an action item? It's not my wheelhouse. We'll confirm with engineering what that means on a percentage basis so that we can turn that complex language into layman terms.
Okay, sounds good. Councillor Clickash.
Well, thanks for that information. But, we're looking for efficiency from all our gas equipment. And the more water that's in there, the less efficient it is, the gas is. So hopefully you'll be able to, with this plant reconstruction, that you'll be able to lower the amount of water that's in the gas. Thank you.
Thank you for the feedback.
All right, any other questions from council? All right, David, you'll keep us updated in regards to how this proceeds?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. All right, well, thank you very much for coming in and answering our questions and updating on what we see and why we see a possible increase to our delivery fees, because it doesn't hit our commodity, it only hits our delivery fees. And then hopefully, please feel free to reach out to Lisa Scott, our CAO, as you get updated, because I think it's really important that we watch this. I mean, it's important for our residents. There's concern that this increase could really hurt some of our young families and such in Tumbler Ridge, and that's a huge concern, huge concern.
Absolutely. We hear you loud and clear, so we'll keep you in the loop. I'll send updates just as soon as we have them.
Okay, I appreciate that. Again, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having us.
All right, we're going to take a 5-minute recess.
Bye now.
Okay, on to reports. 6.1, Director Training Requirement to receive district funds at the November 26, 2024 regular council meeting. Council deferred this topic to be discussed at the P&P committee meeting.
Thanks.
I'm going to put a motion on the floor for discussion. Seconder, Councillor Julik. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. I'm going to start off, and I appreciate Councillor Julik bringing this forward at a regular meeting. And the reason I brought it to a P&P is just to, I don't know if it was the right way or not. I've talked to the CEO. Maybe we should have just dealt with it a different way there. But to me, I think we need to look at this and have an open conversation in regards to it. So my thing is, the first thing we should be doing is looking for a report from staff with the costs associated with putting on board training for the boards within the community. I also mentioned that, maybe staff could reach out to the PRD to see if they would want to join us and do it as a partnership so that we could try to do it where, we put in funds, but also the PRD to do board training through the whole region, the Peace region, as there is other boards in other communities. Maybe it's not something they want to even follow through on. Maybe it's not something that, it's not based on if they're going to receive funds or not. But I think offering up board training is very important for the boards, for all the non-for-profits, whether that's, we can have the discussion whether it's going to be in regards if they're going to receive funds from the district or not. If they don't have the board training, they don't receive funds or not. I don't know if I'm interested in the concept that if you don't have majority of your board with board training that you can't receive funds from the DTR. But to me, I think we should be starting an initial step of getting a report of what the cost would be if we were to try to put this on within Tumbler Ridge, and also maybe have a conversation with the PRRD to see if they would come on board and partner with us so that we could offer it, or have the same organization or company that we hire offer it within the region. I think that's the discussion that should be had. Anybody else from council? Councillor Julik.
I thought a lot about this before I brought it forward, and part of it has been because of my experience with boards, particularly boards that have staff members. I think that there's some more intricacies that happen in there. I recall a time when the district had offered to bring in board training for communities and for boards, and there was no uptake on it. I was pleased to hear TRORA talking about it today. I think that in today's, today we have so much that we depend on nonprofits for. Even when we go talk about getting housing funds, we are told by BC Housing that they want to have a nonprofit board be part of that. And when we start looking at the dollars that some boards have in their care, I think it's important that the people that serve on those boards have a real understanding of what it is that they're signing up for when they go on the board. I can only imagine what some of the reports have looked like in the past, like the boards, do they have a full knowledge of what it looks like when they take money from someplace? What kind of reports they need to report back to? If we were to ask for them, could we publish those? You know what I mean? Like I'm just wondering about the quality and what people think that they're getting into at the time and what their responsibilities are for the money. And even things so far as whether or not your board gets a loan. What happens with HR requirements if you go south with those when you think about how many of our nonprofits have staff members? What's the difference between an honorarium or salaries? And if we don't have our board members have any kind of board training, then I would say at the minimum, we should have the executive directors have some of that training before we give those funds, because otherwise I don't think that we're being responsible with tax dollars as we give them out. When we look at $522,000 just in grant and aid and fee for service, not including the library funding, I just think it's really important that those things are there. Like, we as council have staff all the time tell us what are our next steps and what is legal and what's not legal. And if you don't have an executive director or even a board chair that has some of that information, I think that we're not doing our our folks any, our communities and those nonprofits any good. When you think about policies and procedures, I can name 5 boards that I served on that had none. And so what happens next when things go south? And all of us in this, well, maybe not all of us, but we've noticed, we've seen what happens if things aren't in place. So I just think it's super important. I think that we need to be more cognizant when we go forward with our grant and aid, which is something I would talk about in the next policy that we're discussing. But I think the board training, I'm really glad that we're able to bring it to this meeting, because I think maybe we do it every 2 years. Maybe it doesn't have to be the majority, but maybe the executive director or their staff member has to have some training. I think that there's different ways that we can do it. I don't think it's terrible to ask the boards themselves to have some skin in the game on it so far as funds, but I'm okay for the district to do it. Like I would vote in favor, probably, once we get a number back for what it looks like for that training. But I don't see them doing it unless it's a requirement. Like just in my past experience, what I've seen when the District of Tumbler Ridge offered it up before for free, when I was sitting on nonprofit boards, I don't know that they would do it. Does it have to be the majority? Maybe not. Maybe it just has to be the ED. I don't know. Maybe we get feedback from the not-for-profits. But I think to continue to give out the amount of money that we give out, that we have really no oversight on, besides maybe getting some records back, I think that that's irresponsible for us. I think that we can talk around a lot of different solutions, and it doesn't have to be just how I made the motion, but I really think we need to change some requirements.
Thanks. Just before we go to Councillor Noxana, my belief is when we have grant and aids or fee for services, they don't receive funds. You know, they may receive funds for the first year under a grant and aid, but if they don't supply the documentation that the district requires in regards to the policy of their financials, they would not qualify for that. Ms. Scott, is that not correct?
The way the policy is written, that is correct. And staff is trying to do a better job of making sure that we get all of the follow-up information that we require when we give out grants.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Noxana?
Thank you. I'm in favor of looking into the cost for this training, but would be hesitant to make this a requirement or to tell boards what their staff members must be trained in. I think that there's a line we need to walk between offering people information and mandating what must be done. I recognize maybe the training didn't have a lot of uptake in past years, but I've sat on boards that offered it in-house and it was successful. So perhaps the district one wasn't taken advantage of because of that. I can't speak to it. I wasn't there at the time. Ultimately, it comes down to money. How much is this course going to take? And if we're requiring it to apply for money from the district, how often are we then responsible for offering it forever? Once a year, twice a year, forever? That kind of locks us into a sticky situation, in my opinion.
Thank you. Councillor Norbury.
Thanks, Mayor Kakaka. I mean, my thoughts initially are, I'd like the district to put it on, and I'd be fine if we did it twice a year, because schedules get hectic. Sometimes you can't make it, right? So I think, this is something that is a good idea to help boards become better at governance. I think that's a great idea. But making a requirement, I think we're going to create, we're going to exacerbate, that was a tough word. We're going to create more problems they're going to solve, in my opinion. I'm not even going to try anymore. If it was written on a page, I bet I could read it out loud just fine. But, But so like my thoughts is, you know, the goal of this would be to have great functioning boards. Just because you have training doesn't mean it's actually going to work, right? Like I've met plenty of people who are trained, and you know, ourselves included. I mean, let's be honest. You know, we did 2 days, and that makes sense. We're paid to be here, honorariums, but we're paid to do a job, and we should get the training for it. Great. But, you know, one of the other issues that we have in our community, I think would affect us negatively, is our volunteerism. You know, it's struggling wherever you go. Like everyone's talking about recruitment and retention of volunteers. It's hard, right? You know, I look at all the organizations that we've given money to. Over the last 4 years, you know, Lions Club, TRMBA, Forever Young, Museum, Geopark, which makes up the majority of that 500,000 that we're talking about. The Wolverine Nordic Mountain Society, Youth Service Society, Hospice Society, Firefighters Association, TR Days, Grizzly Valley ATV Club. You know, we're going to ask all these organizations to go out and get training for clubs that are mostly put together of caring people that just want to do good in our community, and we're going to put another barrier in front of them just to operate to do what they love. I'd be concerned the negative impact that would have on there. Again, I think it's a great idea if we offer it. I would fully support us offering it, but as a requirement, that's a tough one. Thanks.
Thanks. Before I go to Councillor Julick, and I think, you know, that the first concept or first thoughts is finding out what a cost would be if the DTR was to hold it, and see what that looks like and stuff like that. And then you know, it doesn't mean we lose these motions that can come back and have that debate where they're, you know, to me, I want to see what the cost is to hold a director training, board training, whatever it may be. See what that cost is, see if it's something that council wants to dip into in regards to putting it on and funding it. And I think when you do look at doing that, I think you got to look at probably a couple times a year. You know, when I was in and I talked to Ms. Scott about why I thought about with the PRD was, you know, you do the spring in Tumbler, you do the fall in Dawson, the following year you do spring in Chetwynd, fall in Fort St. John, whatever way the schedule got made. But it gives opportunities for people also to go, if they're not available, they can go outside the community and still take it within the region. But it's a multi-year kind of concept that the PRD was to join to make sure it's there. You know, and a couple councillors mentioned it already. Like, if we put it as a mandatory, there might be something that has to be looked at, that it's an 8-year process or 8-year funded process or whatever it may be. But for myself, the first thing I think we need to do is find out what the cost is. And, you know, I know TORA kind of thrown out a number that, you know, they had looked into it and stuff. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if that's, you know, the same concept that staff would look into, but we want to make sure it's proper. To me, it fits the criteria of board training on multiple different boards, because every board is different and has different policies and different everything. Some have staff, some don't have staff. Everything's volunteer, some are paid. But that's my things. My thoughts is we need to find out first what the funding model looked like and if it's something this council would support in paying for, and then look at, to me, I mean, you can put these motions on the floor anytime you wish. But then look at that, whether that's a mandated term or not. And I know, like mentioning that, oh, if it's not the board, then we direct all the groups that if they have a staff member, the staff member has to do it. Well, now we're getting into the boards. We're actually running and I don't want to be involved in that. I'd be honest with you, I definitely don't want to be into that part. That's just me personally. I think we got to be careful that we're not getting in on the Geopark or the museum or whatever boards have at the Chamber of Commerce and such, getting into these groups and telling them what their employee has to do before they receive funds from us. But I think the first thing we should do is look at what the cost is. Is it a cost that the council is willing to take on? And then see what the uptake is. And I think, you know, we're a little, you know, obviously we're late for the budget this year. We talked about that at a previous meeting. But I know staff puts on a non-for-profit roundtable, thank you. It's already been done this year, but maybe it's something that we could, you know, once we hear costs back, is solicit that through staff to find out if we were to offer this to all these non-for-profits that show up at the roundtable, would it be something they wanted to take? And that kind of gives us an idea that if we spend whatever it is, I mean, I'm going to throw a number, if it's $5,000 for a year for this to do it twice, is it worth it? Because all of a sudden there's an individual organization, non-for-profit, say, you know, looks like there's 40 people that would be willing to sign up on. That doesn't mean you're gonna get 40. Maybe you get 15. Maybe you get 20. But to me, that's where I'm at. But Councillor Julick?
Yeah, and I appreciate everybody's feedback. That's why I'm really glad it came to a PPC, because then we get the opportunity to just kind of toss it around a bit. And you know, and I hear I hear the validity and if we're just doing a little bit of money, you know, does it make sense for these guys to have the training? When we're giving out $200,000 or $150,000 or $465,000, absolutely I do. I think that we need to tell them that their staff member has to take it, maybe not. But I'm perfectly comfortable, if we're giving out big dollars like that, anything over $10,000-$20,000, absolutely, I think they should have some training. I don't know that I would move a lot from it. I definitely hear the concerns of everybody. I don't know why you as a director wouldn't want to have the training, and I don't know why we as a council would be comfortable giving large amount of dollars to people who maybe don't, that don't have the training necessarily to understand the responsibility that they're taking on with those dollars. I know I didn't when I got into anything. And like I said, like even things as basic as having policies and procedures in place when you have staff members, you don't have staff members. I think when they're getting big dollar amounts from other trust fund, like other trust, NDIT, all of that, and I get that they don't require those, and I don't know. I'm glad we've had a chance to toss it around. I still think it's important, and I'm content to have the motion, like to ask staff to come back with an amount, and that might change the discussion again. I don't know. And for me to maybe do some more research. I'm just surprised that it's not a requirement for a lot of things, because I've seen some pretty weird stuff on some boards.
Okay, Councillor Dussault.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just want to put out there that, you know, we talk about these big funds and that we've given out. I would like it to be known that one of these groups actually just went through board training. So they have done it.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, and we don't know. Most of them could already have it. I don't know that. I didn't reach out. Again, I don't want to run a board. I think I'm busy enough and stuff like that. Like you mentioned about it, before I go to Councilor Norberry, sorry, you mentioned about other organizations don't require it. I mean, the provincial government doesn't require it. Right? There's funds given to an organization that I'm well aware of. They have to supply financial documents here. They're not required to have board training on that board. And they help like oversee enough dollars to run that organization in regards to it. So that's a provincial government. So again, like to me, I'm fine with having a debate or a motion on the floor and then having a conversation. Councilor Norberry.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. You know, I mean, I look at some of the boards in our community. Some of these board members are outstanding. Like there's members in the community that are, you know, mine managers. They're HR professionals. Like they are of outstanding caliber. So they are aware of all these things that Councillor Julich is commenting on, and to insinuate, and I don't think you're insinuating it, but it is being picked up in the community that I am a educated professional in my field. I have a master's degree. I have a bachelor's degree, board training. If it's offered, sure, but to make it a requirement when no other organized level of government requires it, I think it's a tough pill to swallow. Thanks.
Okay, I'm gonna put a motion on the floor here, sorry. I'll come right to you. I'm gonna put a motion on the floor that we direct staff to bring back a report on the cost of running board training for non-for-profit organizations 2 times a year for 2025. And the staff reach out to the PRRD to see if they will partner with the District of Tumbler Ridge to offer it within the Peace Region. Seconder. Councillor Dussault, discussion. Councillor Julich.
Yeah, thanks for the motion, and I appreciate Councillor Norberry's remarks, and I'm glad that you that you qualified, because I definitely am not insinuating that boards don't have amazing people on them. I think everybody in our communities that volunteer are amazing. For me, this is my intent behind this is to protect the board members and the district, because I think that both of those things are important, and that those amount of funds are going out to places just boggles my mind. So I still don't have a problem asking for that, but I appreciate the motion, and I'm going to support the motion that's on the floor, and I appreciate everybody taking the time and discussing this tonight.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Motion on the floor. Gonna call the question. All in favor? Carried. Any more discussion in regards to director training requirement to receive district funds? Councillor Gillick.
No, sorry, I don't know why I pushed that button.
Okay. All right, and I don't know, I guess, Ms. Scott, in regards to this, do these motions go away and it would have to come back as a notice of motion at a later time? Or do we put these motions back on the floor and then defer them to a P&P once we receive the report from staff? Because, again, it's not I know the report's not going to be here in January, it might be February, I'm not putting a date to it, so how do we make sure we keep, and it's just because I believe the councillor put this notice of motion out because that's what they believe their heart is and where they're thinking. So are these motions, if we don't put them on the floor and defer them to a certain date, do they just get lost?
My recommendation would be to put them back on a floor to be deferred to a specific date.
Yep.
Yes.
Councillor Gillick?
Do you need a specific date?
Just put them on and then I'll put
Okay.
them on and get a seconder and then we'll go from there.
That District of Tumbler Ridge funds can only be given to nonprofit boards where the majority of the board has had director training.
Seconder? Councillor Clickash? Discussion? I'm going to put a motion on the floor to defer this motion until the P&P in February. Just before I get a seconder, Ms. Scott, with that, you think that'll be enough time or should we go one more month?
I believe that will give us enough time, yes.
Okay, take a seconder on the deferral. Councillor Julick, discussion on the deferral. Okay, going to call the question. All in favor? Carried. Second recommendation, Councillor Julick.
That District of Tumbler Ridge funds can only be given to council-appointed boards where the majority of the board has had director training.
Seconder. Councillor Clickash. Discussion. I'm going to put a motion on the floor to defer this until the February P&P. Seconder. Councillor Dussault. Discussion on the deferral. Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, Ms. Scott, for the help. 6.2, grant and aid and fee-for-service policy schedule review. Report dated December 9th, 2024 from the Director of Corporate Services regarding grant and aid and fee-for-service policy schedule review. Recommendations, or Councillor Julick?
That the TR 28 grant and aid policy and the TR 40 fee-for-service policy be received for review.
Seconder, Councillor Norbury. All in favor? Carried. Councillor Julick.
I really appreciate the work that went into this report and the suggestions that were made, because I feel like that's what works for staff. So I'm willing to, I don't have any questions to that specifically. My question would be if it would be feasible to add a set amount for the year that we know going into budget discussions, how much we're willing to do for grant and aid and fee for service, if it's already broken down, so we have an idea in budget. And I'm wondering if we need to look at publishing how the funds are used so that when those reports come back, that those go into an agenda package or something like that. I don't know if that's common practice anywhere else, but I think that if we're using taxable funds, that we should, and if it's public information, I'm not asking for any information that would be confidential, but if it's public information, that we as the district compile those forms, because they have to come to us anyways in order to, if I read the policy right, they have to come back to us anyways to make sure that they've met all the conditions. And then we publish those so our taxpayers know how the money's been spent.
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, I'll talk to, or go to Ms. Scott, but if council so decides they want to put a maximum amount of money they're willing to give out, and whether it's the grant and aid policy number and then a fee-for-service number, I believe we can do that. When it comes to reporting, again, it goes into our agenda, which is open to the public. It's not only printed out for within the gallery, it's put onto our website. Anybody can look back at any grant and aid or fee-for-service and what they've done. They supply financials. It sounded like from Ms. Scott earlier, we're making sure that we have more of a pulse, that they're actually following what is in the policy and what they need to supply. But my understanding is when they submit at the year ends, whether they come in as a delegation or whatever, that is all public. But Ms. Scott, just in regards to, before I go to Councilor Julik, in regards to putting in an amount, so guess an example would be grant and aid policy. Here's the total amount that we're willing to give. Doable, not doable?
I would like to ask our Director of Finance what her opinion is on whether that belongs in a policy or not.
Sorry, I wasn't sure what mic you were at.
Sorry. Through to Mayor and Council, I would actually put it more as part of the budget, establishing it by motion for a budget, that you'll have it for the 5-year financial plan, so much per year. Whereas with a policy, it would require regular updating amendments. And I'd also recommend that you would set it up as a maximum of.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Julik.
So I guess my question then is, I've never seen the fine, I've seen when people have put in, when they ask for the grant and aid, but I've never seen the disbursements of it at the end. I've never seen a report that says we gave $10,000 to ABC and ABC spent that $10,000 in this way.
Ms. Scott? Are we not receiving, if we do grant and aids or the fee for service, I mean, we can just talk about grant and aid for now. I know they're both on the floor. I guess the question is when, at the end of the year, so if we give us funds out in 2024, do we see anything back in that year before 2025 from the organization that has spent the funds?
Some of them we may, some of them we may not. And so I just want to clarify what Councillor Julik is asking. So when council has decided how much they're giving out at the beginning of, before you adopt your budget, at that point when you've already decided, is when you want that information to go out versus at the end of the year when they report back what all they've actually spent.
Councillor Julik?
I'm looking for, so I know that the amount that they want and we approve is in the public, but I can't say as I've ever seen a report back at the end of the year when they need to report back what they've used the money for. Unless I'm reading the policy wrong, I thought that they still had to, after they received the funds, come back to you guys and report how the funds were used to confirm that they were used.
So tonight, I look at TRORA. TRORA talked about the OS Cruiser, which we funded through grant and aid. They also talked about the FMX that we funded in grant and aid. But Ms. Scott?
Section 4.5.4 does say the Finance Department will forward the final reports for council information as correspondence in a council meeting agenda.
Okay.
Anything for follow-up?
No, I'll go back and look, but I just want to make, that would be something that I want to make sure that we get, and I don't know what that check and balance is.
Okay. Councilor Norberg?
Thank you, Mayor Kukalka. After reviewing the proposed changes, if you look at the summary of proposed changes, for the disbursement of funds of over $20,000, quarterly payment upon submission of quarterly progress reports indicates that we're not going to give them money till after their first quarter of operation, which doesn't make much sense to me in that how can somebody submit a quarterly report on a operation that they haven't received funds for? So my thoughts would be to change that from, we should, yes, every quarter get a report. I think that's a great idea, but how can they get started unless they get funds in? Right? How can they pay an employee if they're an employee-driven organization?
Ms. Scott? Page number? You're on, which one are you on? You're
Well,
the
I'm
you're
on
grant
page
and aid?
34.
Yeah.
It just looks at the proposed change. And when I went to look through the policies, I did see a provision of, where was it? That, yeah, they wouldn't give out funding unless it's been reviewed, but it doesn't say it seems a little ambiguous there.
So we're on page 34, Ms. Scott? Or Councilor Norberg, yes, sorry.
I'm also looking at page 40 of the actual report, or the actual grant and aid policy, where it does say that for applications over $20,000, funds will be released on a quarterly basis only after the quarterly progress report is submitted by the organization and reviewed by the district's finance department. So in regards to your question about how do those organizations get started without the money to begin with, if they have to submit a report in order to get the funds, I again will ask the Director of Finance to provide some clarification on what we're asking for there.
Through to Mayor and Council, this is actually a really kind of a touchy situation because there's also those organizations where you're giving out money. It's not really a best practice to hand over money before there isn't any work done either. So what has happened typically is if there was a group that was in desperate need, they could make application for approval to come to council, that we'd make a payment to them. It would not necessarily be a full quarterly payment, but it would be a payment to them to be able to meet the needs if they can show what those needs are, versus giving them a full quarter where they may not need all those monies. It may be more than what they need for a quarter. This would only release the amount that they may save for wages.
So just to follow up on page 40, I look under A, I know you read B, Ms. Scott, but A says all applications up to 20,000 will be eligible for 75% disbursement upon council's approval. Yeah, up to.
Yep.
Yeah, up to, and one's over, okay. But then the over is the other way around.
Yes.
Okay, and I just want to make sure council's aware too, I talked to Ms. Scott this afternoon, just so everybody's aware, this will not take effect until the 2026 budget. It will not make the 2025. Just so everybody's aware, so they can update the organizations. So I guess my question would be, or my comment back to Councillor Julik would be, is if, I think it's, it's great when staff comes forward with some ideas and concepts within a policy change, but it's up to council. So it's not about if it works best for staff, no disrespect, but as long as council is making sure that we know what the dates and timelines that we are setting for our budget. I want to make sure that's very, very clear here, is that council has to be okay with this and making sure that a time fits when it comes to not-for-profit organizations that we all, to me, see here and other agree to give funds or not to agree to give funds. But I just want to make sure, like, when we talk about schedules and stuff like that, obviously, there's not much going on, holidays and stuff in October, November, and December, just because for conferences, we're pretty much done, obviously, EBCM's done, but just so council's aware, because that could update the meetings. I know budget calendar comes out, but to me, when non-for-profit organizations either apply for grant aid or fee for service, they also have the opportunity to come in as a delegation. So just so everybody's aware that changes our schedule, or could change our schedule. Okay, any other questions, comments, concerns? Fine with the changes, want other changes made? Councilor Norbury?
Didn't have much uptick on it, but I'm going to motion that disbursement of funds, we give quarterly payments at the beginning of the quarter.
Okay, hit me that one again, sorry.
That disbursement of funds are at the beginning of the quarter of disbursement of funds of over $20,000. Thanks.
Seconder? I'll second that. Discussion? Councilor Julik?
I think the CFO said it well when she said that best practice is to do it how it is in here. I think what I've had some experience in before is this would be a good way to go about it. And I think if places know that they that this is the way it's going to be dispersed, and they know that they have an alternate option to get the money in a different way, as Ms. Wayner talked about, I'm okay with it being that way. If they need to come and clarify for us why they would need it sooner, I remember that being done in the past, not when I was on council, but when I witnessed a council meeting. So I know that it'll happen, and so I will be voting against this motion.
Thank you. Councilor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Kikaka. I just think about organizations that may be starting up. They may not have access to other funds. They are not able to get started. So, by the end of the year, they're going to have to use up all their funding, and when they come back in, if they come back in for another fee for service, they're going to have to, again, appear before council to request, you know, a draw upon their first quarterly payment. Yeah, I mean, it just seems like we're creating some situation for some organizations that just can't operate with a potential 3-year budget in front of them before they start. Thanks.
Thanks. Before I go to Councilor Jill, I'll make a couple comments. So I think when staff mentioned about how, you know, like this is best practices, they have an opportunity, you know, to come before council, but, you know, I just want clarity. They don't have to come before council. They can just write a letter. Ms. Scott? Is that not true? They don't have to come as a delegation. They could write a letter stating they're looking for funds to be dispersed early. This is the reasoning?
Yes.
And the reason I make those comments is we see the same thing at the PRD. And that was in regards to the referendum that was held for the geopark and for the museum that were fully supported within the Peace region, or, okay, majority was supported, shouldn't say fully, because obviously there was some opposed, but it was the same as them. We have a certain date that there's payments are starting, and both organizations had to send a letter into the PRD, and, you know, it gives the directors there, which I think it gives us the opportunity, but not just us, but staff, that opportunity to make sure that the criteria has been met. And to me, like, you know, I heard from Councilor Julik earlier ask those questions, and then hear from staff that we're trying to make sure that they're, you know, they're meeting what we're asking within the policy, and, you know, staff's gonna keep a better pulse on it or clarity on it, which I can't wait to hear. So I think this is an opportunity to support the concept that, you know, this is what staff is looking for, and when they, to me, when they say it's best practice, and no organization has to go without funds, they can submit a letter, or they can come in person. You know, I'm always interested in seeing people in person in the gallery, but they can submit a letter. I think it's, you know, I think it's a good way to go. I really believe it. I believe it supports not only the concept, but I think it supports some of the other ideas or concepts, communication that our councillors are mentioning about, you know, I've been on council 2 years. I haven't, you know, we've given out 20,000 here and 18,000 here and 15,000 here, but we're not seeing a report on where it was spent and stuff like that. I think that gives an opportunity for staff to make sure we're circling back to what we have in here and give staff that opportunity to say, hey, listen, yeah, you're right. You know, we need you back in. I mean, I can't support the motion on the floor. Apologize, but I think it's good practice. Councillor Julik.
And I appreciate Councillor Norbury comments, because I've been on those boards where you're just not sure where you're getting the money from. At the same time, we all have to budget. And I think that because of the boards that we do have, I do feel like they can budget. And if they know that this is how the money's going to be released, they'll budget that way. Same as we all do at our own home finances. So thanks.
Okay, any more discussion in regards to the motion on the floor? Councillor Klikash.
Yes, I've been a little bit involved with different places, and I found that they're not spending all the money. Some of the I don't know how they're getting away with it, but when they report to the government, the federal government, they're not spending all their money. There's some of them had as much as $10,000 left in the bank. So I thought that had to be returned to the district if it's not used in that year. And if that's the situation, then and they have money, well, they don't need anything for their first quarter, because that could be half their allotted amount that they were given.
Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor. As the reports, as the policies are shown, they do have to give it back. So they wouldn't have that funding at the end of their term. They'd have to give it back, but they should. Right? And if they're being reported on, it will be returned. So they won't have that. That's what I'm trying to say.
Sorry, you have to repeat your question just to make sure that people can catch us on Zoom. I had your mic off, sorry.
Yeah.
No, but you mentioned a question, and you have a question, so ask it. Okay. Any more discussion? Okay, gonna call the question on the motion. All in favor? No amendment. It's a motion to change it. Thank you. Opposed? I know what I'm doing. Councillor Dussault, Councillor Klikash, Councillor Julik, Councillor Noxana, Mayor Calcar. Opposed, motion is defeated. Any other motions or Councillor Noxana?
I'm going to make a motion that the proposed amendments to the TR 28 grant and aid policy be endorsed and the administration be directed to present the updated policy at a regular council meeting for final approval.
Seconder, Councillor Julick. Discussion. Councillor Norberry.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. I had another question about the proposed changes. Can I still talk about that, or are we
Yep,
talking?
nope,
Okay, thanks.
nope.
There is, with the extension of funds that's proposed, it says that, I don't know if I could even find it in which documents, but it says that unused funds need to have, well, can be extended, but it doesn't say who's going to extend it. Will that come to council? Will that be allowed by staff? Personally, I think staff can be given the allowance to review that, but in the documents, it just says upon approval.
Ms. Scott.
Section 4.4C says the extension will be subject to council's approval.
Sorry,
So that's the grant and aid. And then 4.4 of grant and aid.
it's right here.
Looking for the fee for service as well.
Okay, well, we're on the grant and aid.
Aren't we? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? It's the motion that's on the floor. Okay, gonna call the question. All in favor? Carried. Recommendation number 3.
Sure.
Councilor Norberry.
So my previous question about the extension of funds for the fee for service, can staff point out the extension there?
Ms. Scott? What page did you see it on, or do you know?
I didn't see it. I think that's why my question.
Okay. So Councilor Norberry is unsure if it's actually within that policy. So we're just looking for clarification as if it's within that policy as well.
Here it says about returning.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it too.
Page 51, 4.5.3. Page 51, 4.5.3.
Any surplus funds from district must be returned with the report. There's no
I
opportunity.
don't see anything in the report, I don't see anything in the report that talks about extensions for fees of service, but I will ask the Director of Finance if she can provide some information there.
Through to Mayor and Council, fee-for-service is different than grant and aid. Grant and aid's for a project or a circumstance, so that would be something that may not be finished in one calendar year or 1 year. Fee-for-service is to provide the service for the year, so there shouldn't be an extension because the service that they're providing is for that year, which is why there's no extension on that one.
Yeah, makes sense. Thanks.
Okay. Any other discussion? My only biggest concern with both proposals, but I know the only one is on here, and that is the deadline is in August. We just need to really, really make sure, because it does state in the policy that there is no late requests taken. So it is very, very, to me, very, very important that we make sure all our non-for-profit organizations that may or may not apply for grant aid or a fee for service is well aware of these restrictions. Like, whatever we have to do, especially because it's gonna be implemented for the 2026 budget, which to me starts, I believe we started in September of 2025. Could be wrong on the date, but it might have been October. That's how important that is to me, is to make sure that, especially when we state in our own policy, which we can always waive policy, but to me, that's not good practice, because to me, we hold ourselves accountable, and we've asked staff to be held accountable. So we need to just really, really make sure that groups are well aware. However we do that, we just need to make sure that we are making sure all groups know about it. That's, to me, is very important. Councillor Klickash and then Councillor Julick.
On fee for service, I know in the past, check hasn't been issued or the payment hasn't been issued for the last quarter, and it's come in late. So they haven't been able to actually spend the money in that calendar year. It's carried through to the following year. So we'd have to clean up that too.
Yeah, Ms. Scott, I know there is some concerns with some of our payments in fee-for-services and such. How do we make sure that we are following, and sometimes it may not be staff, sometimes maybe the organization has not supplied the documentation as required as per our policy. I am not 100% sure on that, obviously I don't sit in the rooms here. But Ms. Scott, how do we make sure that our payments from the DTR on our set schedules are actually being put out at the right times?
This is a process, again, that we have been reviewing. And so I, again, will ask the Director of Finance to provide information about what her department is doing to keep a better pulse on that.
Yeah, finance will be setting up quarterly calendar reminders, that type of thing. The only thing I do want to make council aware of is that usually we withhold the final till we get the statements, because for the last payment, we need to have an accounting for, because sometimes what we're finding is they haven't spent all the money, so we don't do a full check and payment on the last one. So that becomes where a bit of the challenge comes into it, is you don't normally hand out all of the money and then all of a sudden they haven't spent it all. That's where it can lead to surplus funds being left with the organization. So it's more of a case of they have to send in the paperwork, which is why it does sometimes lead to January, because we're waiting for that paperwork to come in. And then we have, we'll release the payment in January because we've got that documentation.
Okay, so just follow up, gonna ask the same question more or less. I do not want to use the organization's name, but I will if I have to. But I know we are late on a certain organization constantly. I know I received an email, I believe probably majority of council, I know our CEO as well has received that email. I don't want to say the organization's name, but if I have to, I will, so staff knows what I'm talking about. But can we make sure that, you know, when we set these budgets up and we have approved it, we just need to make sure we have something set up that we're paying it in the fashion it's supposed to be paid in. And I believe that the reason I'm asking this question is because of Councillor Klickash. Because I don't think he got the full answer. I think that's the organization I'm talking about.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, and as Director Rayner had mentioned as well, we recognize that has been somewhat of an issue previously, so we are changing process going forward. They have set up calendars to keep track of those payments to make sure that they're not missed.
Perfect. Appreciate that. Councillor Gill.
I just wanted to say thanks to staff. I've seen advertising on the DTR Facebook page about grant and aid and fee-for-service applications being in. And I agree with you, Mayor Kakauka, about getting the message out there. And I think we can help with that. And I also think that some of the responsibility lies within the community as well. So hopefully we can just keep putting that out there. And thanks for staff for putting out the reminders already.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. And don't disagree. I'm just saying we are now changing that date on the fly. You know, I'm not sure that how long this date's been in stone and within our policy, but it's been there a long time. And to me, when we start changing dates on certain things like that, I just want to make sure we do our due diligence. And that's, I'm not just asking for staff to do that. That's every elected official that sits up here. And we either communicate or liaison or whatever, appointed to boards, that information can definitely go. And all those volunteers are also on other boards. They will take it to those boards as well, even if our liaisons aren't there. That's all I'm asking. Okay. Anybody want to put the third recommendation on the floor? Councillor Knox-Dunn.
That the proposed amendments to the TR 40 fee-for-service policy be endorsed and administration be directed to present the updated policy at a regular council meeting for final approval.
Seconder, Councillor Julich. Any discussion? I am going to make one comment because I think it probably happened fairly quick on Thursday or Friday. But when I was in to do the agenda review, I just asked that if some of the changes that were proposed within the policy, if they could be in red. And it happened. So I want to thank staff for that because I know it's something that, you know, we have a new CEO and maybe she wasn't aware of that and stuff like that. But that's how important it is. It makes it easier for us as elected officials to read it. I mean, I also appreciate the target sheet at the front. Kind of tells you what was there, what's the changes, so I don't, appreciate it, really helps when we're looking at these policies and looking at some of the changes that are being brought forward by staff to try and make it better policy for council, but also for staff, so thank you for that. Call the question, all in favor? Carried. Okay, 6.3, council initiatives and capital projects for 2025 and 2026. Report dated December 9th, 2024 from Chief Financial Officer regarding council initiatives and capital projects for 2025 and 2026. Council's wishes. Council Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Kakalka. That council receives the council initiatives and capital project report for discussion.
Seconder. Councillor Noxana, all in favor? Carried. Councillor Norbury.
I got one. That's why I want to discuss it. So at the recent Community Forest AGM report forthcoming, we discussed the interpretive trail. And, with the discussion of the interpretive trail, the community forest put a bunch of funding towards the trail, and there's still funding from the community forest to help with improvements, but the community forest isn't a management organization for projects. They're just a funding organization for those projects. So one of the questions was regarding accessibility upon the trail. The original intent of that trail is supposed to have wheelchair accessibility, or at least get the trail climber thing, the little push along thing for people, to be usable on that trail. It's currently not. I believe that there was opportunity to create some sort of long stair system to allow for people with mobility issues to utilize that area. So I would like staff to come up with a plan or proposal to complete this work and then submit that costing to the community forest, and the community forest would pay for it. So would you like that in a motion?
Please.
I'll motion that staff prepare a report as to the cost of making the interpretive trail wheelchair accessible. Thanks.
Seconder. Councillor Noxana, discussion. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, and I'll just reiterate that the goal of the funding source would be the community forest, not the district. Thanks.
Thank you. I guess my question back to Councillor Norbury would be, when we talk about accessible, would it be something that the community forest had discussion in regards to pavement? So when we talk right now, it is gravel, so if it's soft, I would think it would be very hard, not only to access it within a wheelchair, but a walker and such like that. So is it, like, I mean, I'll be honest, we're asking for a report, and I think the first thing if I would do as I was staff is asphalt's this much per cubic meter. This is how many meters you have. Please write me a check for this amount. Is that something the community forest has talked about?
As far as paving, no, that wasn't the discussion yet. It was just accessibility. I'm not too sure those things need to be combined. Maybe it's an option to have both there. That could be an option to be discussed. But the idea was just accessibility. As far as I know, it doesn't need to be asphalted to be accessible.
No, I don't disagree, but I think when we talk about accessibility, and I know Councillor Gillick and I had a conversation, and she went to a session in Fort St. John, and they actually walked around the hotel or the building they were in. I won't say the name, but it was I guess it was quite eye-opening on how inaccessible that was. And I know myself, when we talk about the interpretive trail, I think it's great if you're semi-mobile. But if you are dedicated to a wheelchair or have to use a walker or one of those battery ones, I'm not sure what they call them, scooters, thank you, figure that out. To me, it's depends what size those wheels are. They won't make it down that gravel, and I think that was one of the reasons the DTR, when they looked at accessibility, that's why we have accessible trails, and they're to a standard to make sure they're accessible for all. And that's why I asked that question. To me, I want to know if that's kind of what we want within the report too, not just, whether it's stairways or whatever. Is it something else that the community forest would look at, that accessible for all would be, to me, a hard surface? But that's why I asked that. Councillor Clickash.
Yeah, accessibility is a difficult thing, especially on a walking trail. Because now if you want to make it accessible, now you're dealing with building codes. And the other thing is, the angle that you can, the minimum angle that you can have is 1 in 12. That means for every 12 feet, you go up 1 foot. So a lot of these places don't actually lend themselves to this kind of situation without a heck of a pile of work. So I don't know if we want to say accessible or accessibility on something like that, even with a paved path, because of the work that will have to be done to make this a 1 in 12 minimum. So you might, it would have to be a deep cut into the banks going down or whatever, right? To be able to get this in there. So anyway, just for information.
Thank you. Councilor Norbury?
Yeah, it's a good comment. I mean, realistically, not all nature is accessible. Realistically, right? But from what I understand, the trail climber is accessible to almost all trails we have in our community. I believe that maybe that's the intention that the community force is looking for. Because I've seen that trail climber out there, and it can get up and around. Because it's, forgive the very basic explanation, but it's basically a wheelbarrow, right? Like it's a single tire, and 2 handles, right? So it can get around, right? So maybe we don't need it accessible for all, but accessible for that at least. So some people can experience the joy of the interpretive trail. Thanks.
Councilor Julik?
I don't sit on the community forest. My question maybe would be is maybe we ask for those funds to create a trail that is accessible for all, rather than trying to modify one that we already have. Like if they have some funds there that they're willing to put towards some trail development, that maybe we find another space that we can create so that we can manage the 1 in 12 incline, whatever those requirements are. I would love to see something like that we could have a trail that's accessible for all. I appreciate that you talked about the trail, and I don't know what it's not a
Trail rider.
Trail rider. Most people that I've talked to say that it's awkward. Probably wouldn't be as bad for the interpretive trail because you don't have tree roots and stuff versus what we see out in the, Quality Falls and stuff like that. But I have no idea what those dollars look like or if there's another area that they think we might be able to build a trail, but I wonder if that might be an option for them.
Councilor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Kukalka. Probably only yourself and maybe Councilor Clickash is aware of the interpretive trail and its inception, but it was paid for like 40% by the community forest. Yeah. And the rest was created from the district. And at that time, this was something that was of the intended build. Like this was supposed to be in the build on inception. So it's not the idea of like, okay, well, let's choose a place to make this. This should have been done beforehand. And we would like to see it continue. It's not pointing fingers and blaming anybody, right? Like, I think it's a great trail. Everyone does the best that they can do. But, it'd be great to see that open up to some people with the aid of some mobility devices and the costs. The funding is there potentially. Thanks.
Thanks. I guess, Ms. Scott, I just want to make sure the staff's clear on the motion and maybe what we're looking for. 'Cause I'll be honest, when that was put out, all I could think about was asphalt. It makes it accessible. Just want to make sure because, to me, the motion doesn't state that. To me, the motion is fairly open and broad. Staff's going to come back with multiple ideas or concepts. Asphalt, cement, hard, who knows what. I just want to make sure it's clear, Councilor Norbury, what the community force is willing to put in. This is what they're directly looking for. Is it a motion that council needs to make? I'll be honest, or is this something that the community forest can reach out to Ms. Scott and work on it with community forest and themselves? I'd just be curious to hear from Ms. Scott. Like, again, Seems like a fairly broad motion. And I just don't want, I understand where it seems like the community forest is coming from. I'm just wondering if maybe this is something that the community forest initiates with our CAO, and then if staff have time, they help them through the process. I'm just looking for some assistance, Ms. Scott.
The motion is very broad. So when we talk about a report for the cost of making the interpretive trail accessible, yeah, I mean, that could potentially be all kinds of different scenarios or situations. So I get, depending on how in-depth you want that report to be, or how much staff time or how soon you want it, because there are several options I think that staff could investigate to make that trail more accessible. I don't think, though, that in order to have it go forward, that it just be the community forest reach out to me to help that move forward. I think there should be some other direction involved there.
Okay, appreciate that. Councilor Norbury?
Thank you, Mayor Kalka. Like, this is from the community forest to staff and council via the liaison, me. Right, like that's why I'm bringing it forward.
Yep, appreciate
Because I personally don't believe that the community forest should go to our CAO and say, hey, we need to look at this, right? This is my way of bringing that from the community forest to council for discussion. Yeah, if we need to limit it to the trail climber, I'll make that amendment. But I'm not looking for an asphalt, just ways to make it more accessible.
Okay, yeah, and I think it has to be more clear. I mean, to me, it just seems so broad that staff's gonna come back. I mean, to me, it'd be a fairly in-depth report. And to me, it sounds like, and that's why I mentioned the other way, right? There's something maybe the community forest reaches out first and then comes forward after the ideas are broken down. But if not, if we can just close the gap on exactly what the community forest is asking this council to support staff to do, because right now, to me, it's a broad motion, and staff is gonna go and do, in my thoughts, staff goes always above and beyond, and they're gonna bring back every idea or concept that we can think of. That'd be my concern. Councillor Julik, and
Yeah, I would want some, I hear where Councillor Norbury's coming from. I guess I would be wondering what the community forest is looking to spend. Because then I think that would give us an idea to staff. You know, like if they're like, yeah, we got 20 grand, staff would be able to say, well, we could, you know what I mean? Like if we as the district aren't looking to put any additional funds on it. So anyways, that's kind of where I'm going with it.
Ms. Scott, any other clarity for us?
I believe that Director Bradley can actually provide council a little bit of information or clarification or direction there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Sorry. In trying to determine exactly what we're looking for, is this a proposal for 2026 budget? Just based on the fact that we are now into the winter, to try to get something going for 2025. I mean, we still have to be able to like go through the entire trail network in order to be able to find out where we need to improve. Because I mean, I've been down that trail in a pickup truck, so just out of curiosity, that's all.
Councillor Norbury?
Definitely not 2025. It would be for 2026 or later. Can I make an amendment to the motion that staff get in touch with the community forest to determine upgrades required?
Seconder on the amendment, Councillor Julik. Discussion on the amendment. And I think the amendment's right. I mean, just the initial, and they can come back. But it just seems like that first motion is broad, and I think, to me, we're looking for, I mean, we work, as community forest works with the DTR, so I mean, I think it's a good motion. Okay, any other discussion on the amendment? Okay, gonna call the question on the amendment. All in favor? Carried. Okay, any more discussion on the amended motion? Okay, gonna call the question on the amended motion. All in favor? Carried. Okay, more discussion in regards to the council strategic priorities and capital items. Councillor Noxena.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that we're keeping sidewalks top of mind as we go into capital projects and the cost that that will be to the district. I definitely don't want to see that lost in the budget process because I think it's something very important to our community.
Yeah, it's not lost. I mean, I'll clarify it with staff, but it's a promise to be done in 2025. It was made by myself and our CEO. But, Ms. Scott, just to confirm? Downtown sidewalk repair?
Yeah, though the cost for that will definitely be part of 2025 budget discussions, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Jalick.
I wanted to congratulate staff as I look at our strategic priorities chart and seeing where everybody's gotten with it. I think that we've ticked off a lot of the boxes. I think as we talk about initiatives from council and what we would like to see, and I know this is ongoing, for me, as Councillor Norbury even brought up the accessibility for that trail, I think that we need to make sure that we have an assessment of our community, period. At some point, like I would be willing to support that, just all the different things when we had Mrs. LaRocque in here talking to us, when we talk about the museum and the accessibility there, that's our building, all of those things. So when I look at our council priorities and what's been there and what's not been done there, as far as I know, we haven't reached out to Métis Nation. There's 2 in BC, so I know that that's something, but you know, that to me isn't necessarily, that would be a low dollar thing. I feel like this accessibility thing is a little bit more up there. I would even go so far as to say I think council could maybe spend some time in a wheelchair or a walker just to see how difficult it may or may not be. I think it gives you a pretty good eye opener. Thanks.
Yeah, just on that, just for a follow-up, Ms. Scott, I know it's not yourself that sits on the committee, but I thought it was through the PRD, but now I heard that it's Fort St. John that is the leading on the accessibility committee. Are we anywhere on that? I know I put a notice of motion forward looking for some information. We have not seen that.
The report will be forthcoming. It won't be at the December 16th meeting. It should hopefully be ready for the January PPC meeting.
Okay. Okay, I think, like, not to lose sight of that, I think we wait and see where, like, so my understanding, and I don't want to waffle this, but my understanding, not only from our own CAO, but I had the same conversation at the PRD with Sean Dahl and the CAO there. I think there's huge concerns with this accessibility committee. Not the people that are on it, but what we're actually getting out of it. So to me, I think we need to wait for the report, and then I think we need to make sure we're doing our due diligence. And that is if we have to do, I'm not saying internally, but if we need to put a budget there to make sure it is done and complete for 2025, that we do it. I know it was talked about accessible doors at the Willow Hall, but how many other places are we needing those and we're missing them? I mean, we could put it in the budget right away to replace those doors and have it done now, or wait for this report and get the information, and if it's not solid enough to make sure we give that clear direction that we're looking for a full audit done. Makes sense? Okay. Councilor Norbury?
Thanks, Mayor Kakaka. Let's get in some wheelchairs. I hear Larry White went out in wheelchairs. Larry was mayor a long time ago. We need to have people talking about Mayor Kakaka out there in a wheelchair, getting around. And I'll do it too. And I'm sure most of us will. I think it's a great idea. We really need to, I think we should get out there in a wheelchair and see how hard it is to get around, especially in wintertime. Especially wintertime. Not electric one, Ken. You got to get out there and use your arms.
For you and Ken, we're old.
I am offering to put Mayor Kakaka in a wheelchair. Thanks.
Yeah,
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Thanks.
yeah, and I think it's important, but I don't think it's a wheelchair that needs to be done. I think honestly, it's a full audit. We know we have issues, and I mean, we as the elected officials, and not only us, but I guarantee it's on staff's radar, and that's our downtown sidewalks. We've had some concerns where maybe I's weren't dotted and T's weren't crossed. I made a promise at the Let's Talk, as well as our CAO did, that we will have it done. It's gonna be done, and I think that will help in the downtown core. Now, I believe that we need to wait for this accessibility committee report to come forward from staff. But then we also have to be prepared at the same time to make sure that we're willing to put some dollars to the pavement that if we're not happy with that, that we're, you know, I'm not saying that staff have time internally, that'll be something that we can hear from Ms. Scott later on after that report comes forward. But to make sure we're doing it early enough that we can make the changes that need to happen within the budget. So I'm never happy, but I'll do it at the budget meetings and have a discussion. I'm never happy just putting a number there until we know exactly what we need, but that might be something we need to actually honestly look at this year. When I hear there's a foot drop off behind one of the doors at the museum, is it a foot or is it two? I don't know. I didn't go up. But that might not be the only place because we don't think about. Okay, I can't speak for all you. I don't think about if I was in a building and all of a sudden the fire alarms go off and I'm in a wheelchair, I'm in a walker, and what does that look like? I haven't done it. I haven't had to. So I think we need to make sure that our buildings are done because I think it's very, very important not only for our residents but our visitors. So I think we wait for that report, and I'll be honest, if we're not satisfied the direction we give staff, then yeah, I would think that we see 6 counselors, one in a powered or two powered wheelchairs or scooters, and 4 wheelchairs. But honestly, I think it's something worth it. If we need to do it after we do the report and we're still not happy, is get out there and see it for ourselves. I know the high school had a group of youth that had come through I'm not sure if they came through all the district buildings, but they did go through some of the businesses to see the accessibility that was available in there. And I think you could do the same thing, but I just think we got to give the time, wait for that report, but then also make sure we have some money there to make sure we can give that staff direction. Councillor Gillick.
I appreciate waiting for the report. I guess I just want to make sure we have it on everybody's radar that, like, I don't know what the sidewalk plans look like, but I felt like when Mrs. LaRock was in here that we have some sidewalks that maybe need to be curbed down that we don't have curbed down. So I'm just wondering if before all of those sidewalks are done that we have double checked those spaces and confirmed where it is we're going to be putting accessible parking spots. Because that would suck to do all the work and then go from there. And thank you for your comments. I agree. I'm just glad that everybody's on board. I think it's important. We have a large senior population and we're only getting older.
Yeah. Ms. Scott, just Ms. Scott, just on that, I've never seen drawings on what the downtown sidewalks plan is. I have an idea of, the overview realm of it. As we get close to the date, I know staff has worked on it. I mean, I've seen some extra work done when they did the West Cam parking lot and stuff like that. So there's obviously a pulse there, but obviously we don't want to forget about, if we're going to add accessibility stalls or not, but we do it if we have to have ramps or whatever. If we can just have a look at that before the process, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've reviewed those sidewalk plans, I don't know how many times. Could I tell you right now where those letdowns are and what that looks like in relation to the stalls? No, I can't. So yes, we will absolutely have a look at that again.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Klickash.
Yes, your worship. Have we actually appropriated the property for the sidewalks?
I have no idea. Just be careful where we go. We're enclosed. We're not enclosed, but some of that information is enclosed.
Okay.
We probably get a report, but I can talk to you after, but yeah, we gotta be careful what we say, as some of that stuff's enclosed right now. Okay, any more discussion in regards to this? So my comments and thoughts are I am still waiting to hear in regards to lighting options for the accessible trail on Moncton Way. I know staff is working on Mackenzie Way to find out where we're allowed to put lights on the backside of BC Hydro poles. But there was also maybe something that was missed here, and that was to make sure from the previous conversation we had in the 2024 budget was to make sure we reached out to Modi to find out if we had the right of way on the side of the highway, if we were to put a trail down Monkman up Highway 52 East to connect it with the trails on Mackenzie. That was talked about in 2024, and we were still waiting to hear back from Modi on that. We were also still waiting to hear back in regards to Flatbed Falls parking lot, on whose ownership is that, in regards to that for expanding the parking lot. Same with Quality Falls Trailhead. I believe there was talk about garbage cans or porta potties. Again, finding out who owns that. So if we can make sure, I understand staff's looking for direction here, but to me, I think we're missing some steps before we can say that we want a cost on trail finishing from Monkman up 52 East onto Mackenzie, or parking lot expansion at Flatbed, whether we own it or don't own it, it's pretty hard to put a budget or ask for a budget number if we don't know who owns it. Same with Quality Falls parking lot, we don't know who owns it. So we need that information, in my opinion, before we can give clear direction to staff to move this forward. But I believe a couple of things that are here, get an estimate for lighting options along accessible trail on Monkman Way. I believe that, like, I mean, unless council doesn't want that there, then we remove it. But to me, I think that can be, to me, that was a motion to get us the costs. And then same with the investigating the waivers and deposit options to allow youth to rent golf carts. Golf course, that was motioned and voted on. So I know it's asking for special projects they wish to consider for 2025. Fully understand that, but we don't have the full information unless it's here and I'm missing it. Ms. Scott?
It's not attached as a report. In regards to Flatbed and Quality, I know Director Bradley has been talking to rec sites about improvements there and may be able to provide council some information in regards to those parking lots.
Sorry, at this point in time, I don't have any further information, but working on it.
Okay, appreciate it. So I guess, Ms. Scott, if I may ask, so we definitely don't own those? We don't own Flatbed parking lots, not the DTRs, and neither is Quality?
I believe that's part of what we are still
Trying to find out. And I appreciate, because to me, if we find out we don't own it, that's an advocacy for this council to be going after government, looking for the, whether that's a parking lot expansion that a couple councillors have brought forward, or the porta potties or the garbage cans. And obviously we could partnership where maybe we take on, you know, extra work by going and removing the garbage and stuff. But yeah, so, okay. All right. Council's all good? I think we need to have some of that information. I mean, the other motions to me are still standing. Like, those are still to move forward in my thoughts, unless council wants to remove them. Okay. So the other ones that are listed is still, to me, is able to proceed. Okay, gonna go to, just gonna grab it. Number 7, and that's the BC Natural Resource Forum. Staff, I'd asked staff to put this forward, so it came from corporate officer in regards to having a conversation on who would like to attend the Natural Resource Forum. So I don't know if we need much of a motion, except if we have hands. So I know I do plan on putting a motion out there that I have had a discussion with our CEO. So we're unable at the point, I think we forgot the date, and we're unable to book into the conference. We have hotels, but I forgot to get this in front of council, so no direction was given to staff to book us into the conference. So is there anybody from council that would like to attend the Natural Resource Forum in person? Right now, you can definitely do it virtually, but in person. Is there anybody from council who would like to attend if they could? Okay, and myself. Okay. Anybody else from council would like to attend? Just want to make sure before I put a motion on the floor. Okay, I'm going to put a motion on the floor that we ask staff to reach out to municipalities within the PRRD and ask if any community has booked into the BC Natural Resource Forum and have any councils that are not attending, that they have a spot that we could take. Seconder, Councillor Julik. Discussion. The reason we're looking for one spot, I will forward an email on to our CEO, but I have received one spot so far. So, okay, all in favor? Motion carries. Okay, number 8 is AME Roundup Conference. Again, it came from our corporate director, sorry. And that's just in regards to getting this in front of council early. In regards to the AME Roundup in Vancouver from January 20th to the 23rd. Anybody would like to attend? I do, so I would like to attend this. Anybody else from council? Okay, so my understanding in the report, and I appreciate it ahead of time, registration closed for early bird on December 6th. The deadline applies December 13th. And then, I mean, I know I'm aware that Ms. Scott talked to me, we apply to actually attend this, and it's up to the conference whether they accept whoever wants to attend to actually attend. So just because I'm putting it in doesn't mean I'll be attending, but I would like to attend. So I'm going to put a motion on the floor that council approves the mayor traveling to the AME 2025 Roundup Conference in Vancouver from January 20th to the 23rd. Seconder, Councilor Norbury. Any discussion? If I could just make one comment, I appreciate staff. I mean, they have some cost here, but if we could just get the cost in the regular meeting on December 16th, just to approve the cost of the AME and possibly the BC Natural Resource Forum if we get another seat. Okay, any other discussion? Going to call the question on the motion. All in favor? Carried. Okay, take adjournment. Councilor Norbury.
At the December 9th, 2024 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting be adjourned.
Seconder, Councilor Dussault. All in favor? Carried.